All right, what is up, guys? How is it going? Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, wherever we're coming from. We back for another episode of the Group Up podcast for the great October debate. Now, I brought the Avengers back with me. It's been a while since we spoke, fellas. In fact, I don't think we've spoken since Overwatch 2 came out. So here we are. Overwatch 2. I got my squad: Samito, Frito, Flats. Guys, how do we think? I'm gonna straight in Samito. Overwatch 2. It's here.
Ah, it's a breath of fresh air for sure. I think that despite a tough launch, right, with like back end stuff, which happens, I think everybody can see through that. The game's been perceived as kind of we all said. I think what we've been talking about the last 2 years, and that hey, look, everybody's going to come back to this game. I don't think Blizzard expected as many people to come back. Like, everyone loves this game. The question is, how long are they going to stay? And I think the core gameplay right now is at a point where people are enjoying it. Like the same IRL friends that, Flats, I'm sure you talked about yours too, like all the times we've been on here. And, all my buddies have been grinding the game. They have a higher battle pass level than I do. Um, I don't know. I guess I was traveling, unfortunately, that first weekend. Then I got sick, so that kind of stunk. But
Yeah.
back to back releases of me getting COVID and then me getting like lung inflammation and throat inflammation or something. We can't catch a
What
break, but the game
what
is
has been the
good.
billboard what has been the billboard poster that you would say, like, Overwatch 2, the Samito
I
headline?
I would say the game's good. The game's back. We're back, baby. We're back. That's
We're
what I'd
back,
like to
baby.
say.
I like
We're
I
we're
like I can see
back.
that on a billboard. I can see that
Yeah,
on a
we're
billboard.
back. We're back, baby, and we're ready to roll. So I've been really impressed with the devs, and I think they've done a great job.
Flats, what's your billboard read?
I mean, I would say the same thing. Overwatch is definitely back. You can tell because all the other gaming communities are pissed off at their game now. And they're like, look at that, look at Overwatch. They're doing all the right things. And we're like, holy shit. how things have changed, you know? I have a lot of good to say. I of course do have some like issues, but they're so much smaller. Like Overwatch did the impossible and it fixed the gameplay problem. So the gameplay itself is good. And that's what is actually now our strongest piece. Wild universe we now live in, where Overwatch's strongest piece is actually the gameplay again, which is cool. It Good question though is how long people will stay. I think as long as they keep putting out consistent good content. I know we got teased the Halloween event for the 25th with on Twitter and said there's a patch coming. There's also Torben Bastion stuff coming back as well. But like they're moving and they have a plan and it's consistent and more stuff's coming out. That's what we like to see. So the hope is this is going to continue for a long time.
It'd be funny because we had Sojourn and Jungle Queen as like advertisers, new heroes. They just like Bastion, new hero coming for the Halloween event, guys. Called Bastion. Like most of you will have not played him
Who?
before,
Who?
but
Ooh.
yeah, I love it.
Bastion. Never
Especially
heard of it.
yeah, I can't even see him in the hero gallery, which is really odd. Like I was trying to look at like skins the other day, and I just couldn't even see him in the hero gallery, which is a little bit crazy. But Frito, what is your headline read? What's your billboard read?
Well, going last in this conversation is difficult because all the good points have been taken. But so instead, I'll try to balance the conversation ever so slightly. So I agree with everything that was just said. I'm really having a great time with the game. Grinding it too much, actually, finding it hard to like dedicated to make content because I'm looking at the footage and I'm like, oh man, I want to go try this strategy or do this or work on this or improve in this way, which is makes me very excited for the game. And I hope a lot of players have that feeling. I will say though, as like a old school Blizzard fan, it's very difficult for me to adjust to them transitioning into like the Fortnite school of development, which is like, oh, that was super broken. Let's try this crazy thing. And oh, that breaks everything over here. And so having new problems I didn't expect to just crop up was sort of jarring for me. And I think a lot of old players for sure. But this is the way that modern live service games work. So we sort of just have to get with the times and kind of get over it a little bit. And I think with enough time, as they prove to us with like, okay, we lost two heroes in this couple of weeks, right? Okay, they put them back in, they fix it, they balance tweak it, new content. Oh, this new thing's nice. They got to keep turning each corner as the content plan rolls out. So we've seen the big rush to the release, but it's with that consistency that we'll begin to trust them because it's like, okay, you can break some stuff once in a while, but then you got to fix it and then make it better and keep us coming back. And once they do that, I think we'll have a lot of faith from this team. So I look forward to turning the corner.
Yeah, and you're not the only one. There's a really good point for you because there's a lot of people who are just very upset that this doesn't have the classic Blizzard polish, as we would call it, right? There's a lot of bugs, there was a lot of issues, and a lot of people lamenting, I suppose, the death of the old way and the Blizzard that maybe represented the last, and maybe Overwatch that represented the last great title to kind of stick to those old principles, and now that's dead. So I understand that for a lot of people that's an upsetting moment, an upsetting passing of the guard. Now, I do want to get your thoughts on the gameplay. Quick admin note before we get there is that for those of you who watch this podcast on YouTube, there will now be a separate group up channel on YouTube for exclusively the podcast. So those of you listening on YouTube, this will be the last one uploaded on the main SVB channel. Make sure if you're listening right now, you go follow the link in the video description and probably on screen right now as well. Go subscribe to that channel. So that's where you'll see all the group up news from now on. And on Twitch, there's a ! Command group up to take you there. Now, we did say the gameplay. Most of you said, in fact, all of you said the gameplay feels great, and that's obviously something we've bitched about endlessly for years on end on this very podcast. So I want to take it to Flats first. Flats, the gameplay. What has been for you? What's made it so much more fun? And is there anything that still sticks out to you as like a sore thumb, or are you generally very happy?
So the reason it's so much better now, one is because everything's fresh again. 5v5 feels much better than 6v6. The shooting to endless shields, shooting to tanks constantly. You're now replaced with the one raid boss tank. Granted, not all the tanks are viable right now. Some of the at lower ranks are probably all viable, but at high ranks you basically have D.Va, Zarya, and a little bit of Winston until D.Va comes out, and then that goes bye-bye. But regardless, though, it's fun. People are enjoying themselves. The gameplay is much faster. The tempo is much faster. There's not like the sitting there and cycling cooldowns until somebody builds an ultimate and then you win the next fight with the ultimate. There's less of those fights where everyone just hits Q and you insta-lose, which always felt terrible because like when people had ult economies going, if you lost first fight, then you lost second fight because they built a support ult, then you lost third fight because they popped 3 or 4 of their Qs, and then they took 3/4 of the map. You use your Qs to take the fight back, and it's like, well, I already lost 3/4 of the game mode, now I have to hold for 5.5 minutes. It's a lot longer of neutral zone fights without everybody pressing Q, which is a lot healthier for the game overall, at least in my opinion. And that's what probably makes it more enjoyable for as a tank player, as like DPS and support. Not sitting there just shooting shields all day long. You're getting that responsiveness of shooting something, even though a lot of people think that the tank's overpowered. I think it's just Zarya. I actually don't think some of the other tanks are that strong. I actually think they're in a good spot. I don't think they need to be buffed. I think Zarya needs to come down. I think D.Va needs a small something. She's a little too much. And then once those are back in place, we might have some problems with like, I don't know, like Junker Queen rushing and the shout, but that's a totally different conversation. Regardless, though, I'm having a lot of fun. I think when I don't have to play Zarya every single game, I'll have more fun. But I'm okay right now. We're not playing double shield anymore. Hey, I'm happy. I lived through that for 2.5 years. I am battle hardened at this point. I'll take it.
Our expectations were pushed so low. We'll just take it. We'll take it. It has genuinely been amazing, though. And I actually agree with you, Flash, as well. I think the Zarya is the one that sticks out to me as a sore thumb of the tank line. I think every other tank still feels killable to me, at least. And D.Va, yeah, maybe a little nudge. But like when Zarya is there with 2 bubbles in your front line and 80 energy or whatever, there's literally nothing. There's literally nothing. The most received Twitch question I've had in my chat is, SCB, what's the counter to Zarya? And I'm like, dude, I don't know.
Same.
If we had one, I would tell you.
Go
if we
Zarya.
had one, I would tell you. Yeah, go Zarya yourself, basically.
I actually have one. I actually do have
go
one.
on, Sam.
I've just been locking Echo and just beaming them,
Oh, that
and
doesn't
it
help
works
me.
because they have to swap D.Va, so I just force Echo, and then like I have like a 70 win rate on Echo just doing that to bad Zarya players. It's free. Sorry, Flats.
Well, if only we were all good at Echo like Sam is. Now, Sam, that leads
No, I'm
nicely
washed.
to your thoughts. Nah, dude, we've seen you, dude. You can't lie. You live stream your gameplay, dude. You can't hide about how good you are.
We'll see
So
about
why
that.
don't you tell us how you found Overwatch 2?
It's been fantastic, man. Like I can't put the game down. It's been a long time since that happened. Like if I'm not streaming or like coaching, I'm probably putting 12 hours into this game every day. So much so that I'm behind on videos because I can't stop playing the freaking game. Like, it's a good problem to have. I mean, it's crazy how we go from one side of the coin. It's like, God, I don't want to put videos out because there's nothing to do. Now I can't put videos out because I'm enjoying the game too much. Right. And that's just kind of on me. But now I really want to give Stylosa credit for his saying here, because he helped, like, last time on the Group Up podcast, he had the best way of saying it. The game is now about playmaking again, like the pot G moments, the pop off moments. He said that defines what Overwatch, and that's what made Overwatch stand out to be so much more beautiful of a game than any other game that you'll ever play. Like the pop-off moments in Overwatch just hit different. They just do. It doesn't matter what hero you're playing, like the 5-man shatter or seeing the headshot with the shatter and the kill feed's my new favorite thing. Like I watch my DPS get both headshot with the shatter at the same shatter was hilarious. Like the Reaper Death Blossoms, like those moments are what make someone stick around and play Overwatch. And now you see the game shift away from the passive, like, kind of get Inspire as Brig or exist as Double Shield. And like, you have to just kite this too. Okay, how can I frag out here and win the team? It's back to its core as a shooter game with all the different MOBA elements. And the fact that those pop-off moments are back have just re-cemented Overwatch as just such a beloved game in the industry. And I think it was really the first game in this new modern era of gaming to really open that doorway back in 2016. And I feel like it's adapted very well to this launch now.
Yeah, and it's been crazy seeing like big streamers from other games still playing Overwatch. Like 2 weeks in, I'm still seeing
Like
them
Shroud. And yeah, those guys.
They're
Shroud,
not always
Assault,
sponsored either.
Pokimane.
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys are like just legitimately voluntarily playing Overwatch. It was before we couldn't buy them. We couldn't pay them to play Overwatch, and now we don't need to. What an absolute turnaround! And Frito, I saw you nodding at the Samito statement that he can't even get his videos out because he's so much enjoying the game. Is that some problem you're finding yourself?
Yeah, I wish there was 48 hours in a single day so I could play Overwatch for 12 and make content for another 12. And then, but that's how I feel as well. Especially getting the MMR reset and ranked, going down, it let me like grind through a ranking up process, which I think as any player, like that feels the best. When you're going up, I finally, after enough grinding, have peaked down a little bit where I hit a replacement and I didn't go 2 each time. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So that's where I'm going to stay for a bit. And I don't have to worry about or work on improving to reach my SR goals myself. But that's really fun with the game is that like you feel, even though we might have complaints about the matchmaking or the balance or whatever, I can press tab and be like, and me and Nathan talk about this a lot because we duo often, but sometimes with the way the matchmaker works, similar to Valorant, you might need to drop 50 limbs or 60 limbs to win a game, right? I had a Junker Queen game, okay, where I went 66 and 6, okay? 66 and 6 was my final score. And we almost lost that game. Now think about what the matchmaker has to be doing in order for that to be a reality, okay? And in some ways, people hate that. They say like, well, why isn't the game even? Why am I not where I'm supposed to be? But on another hand, I kind of like the soft reset nature of how we've gotten ranked, where sometimes you are, and this happens at every tier. It happens worse for you guys that are in top 500, right? Because you get these trash can masters in your games that you have to carry, and that it sucks every game. But every rank, I think, somewhat has this effect where some games you're the top end ranked player, and the game's demanding of you to do that. Now, the beautiful thing in this is you can look at that as an opportunity of like, I'm going to land every ability. I'm going to sync with my team. I'm going to make the shot call that matters, that like saves my Ana, gets her off the objective when the retakes come in against the ult, and dodge this. And that is like so empowering to me as a player. And because the gameplay is so good, as we've been talking about, there's just a lot of ways to do that. Now, as you get higher and higher, it's like, I might say to the 70% of players, you probably can just play Soldier and be fine. But if you're like aspiring to be GM and you don't play Sojourn, don't play Hitscan. like that's just like the rule as far as I'm concerned. And the same thing goes for like Zarya. So the meta does get more strict as you go up, but because there isn't there's not really comps that run themselves, as we've said in this game. So because of that, there's, I also thought Junker Queen was like a horrible character, and I just told you I've been having great success with her. And I think that's because there's a significant ranked solo queue pop-off potential in this game, similar to MOBA games, where there might be champs that are just good in the mix of catching someone off guard. Like Junkrat's another example of a character that, I have a 75% win rate as Junkrat, okay? And he's not supposed to be any good at all. Flash keeps telling me how garbage he is. But then I duel Genjis and Masters and have an easy time, and it's hilarious. And I get these amazing clips for YouTube. So anyway, that's just, I guess, my general feelings of the game. I feel like I can express myself. There's challenges for me, and there's like a path to improvement, which is all I ever wanted from the game.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's been, and I do think I think the reason it's been so popular, the reason we've seen so many new players, I think, what was it that the Play Overwatch
25 million.
Twitter shared? 25
25
million?
million.
25 million new players coming on in, and that's
Isn't it like 10
nuts.
days or
That's
something like that?
10 days,
yeah.
yeah.
That's not even the whole month yet. We're not even there yet.
No, no. So that number could keep going. I mean, remember Overwatch sold about 50 million copies, and we were like, "Damn, that's crazy." I already have 25 million
Half
new
that,
players come
yeah.
in 10 days. I'm sure the devs are delighted, and they should be because they've done that fantastic job. And I think for the majority of the players, it is like Frito described it. It's amazing. You play whatever you want. The meta really doesn't matter. Like everything is viable. Because I've heard people come into my game and be like, "Should I pick Zarya in gold?" And I'm like, "Dude, no. Just pick whatever you want, dude. You want to pick Doomfist? I don't care what he's doing in top 500. Just do it in plat. I'm sure you're gonna wreck anyways." And so that's been great. But there have been obviously frustrations, particularly at the highest end of the ladder. A lot of them centering around the matchmaking and obviously the leaderboard, two kind of slightly separate issues. And I found as well, like personally, I'm at Master 3 right now in support, and I've started to hit that area where like if it's a tank diff, you just kind of lose, especially if it's a Zarya. If someone is picking Zarya and it's a tank diff, it's like, okay, well, what do you do now? And also, yeah, sometimes these really wild, imbalanced matchmaking. So a lot of people have complained that because they can't see everyone's ranks at the moment, that it's very hard to know who's in what rank and what your game is. And it feels all over the place. It feels like we're getting plats in GM games. It feels like these guys should have been way lower. Has that been your experience? I'm gonna start with Sam. Sam, has that been your experience? And if so, like, how do you feel about the whole competitive matchmaking at the moment?
So hot take. Coming on with the Cheetos to start it off, right? I'm not even Torbjorn. So I've definitely seen some lopsided matches, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the games in Overwatch 1 weren't also lopsided, right? Like, I mean, the reasons are a little different. Like, sometimes there are games where there's just a tank gap and it's like GG. But it actually doesn't feel as bad as some of those games in Overwatch 1 to me, because like at least when I'm losing, it's because there's a skill gap on the team, not because they just picked cornball heroes. And like, and a lot of the, like, there were some games where like I could tell, I was like, okay, what lobby did he just put? Like there was one, like unfortunately I would have been top 10 on Echo and I'm not on the leaderboard. So I was very sad about that. Very bummed. So when I was in those games, like I like to climb up to that point, there was one time where, because I placed Diamond because I DC'd from 5 games, immediately straight to GM1 right after. But there was one phase of games where like I went down to GM2. Sorry, Flats, not like in 1 7-game set. Like
I was
like,
gonna say, because I didn't get close to that. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah,
Like,
it took me like 2 sets of winning like 7 straight, and then the system was like, okay, you had like 5 DCs, like okay, like clearly you don't belong in this rank. But there was one time where I D ranked, where I was like, okay, I asked my teammates, I said, what SR is this? Because I farmed as Echo, and you can just like you can tell when you're in like the top 500 lobbies and when you're in like the 3,700 lobbies, like if you know what you're looking for, you can tell. And I think I went 37-0 on Echo on Oasis, and I was like, okay, this is just ridiculous. But in a lot of these games, there'll be times where like I have a hog player who goes 7-9, and I'm just like, you know what? This happens, but yeah, and it wasn't unsalted salt before anyone jumps the gun. Okay, he'd go 7-10. All right, all right. But no, honestly, like it's had its issues, but it hasn't been abysmal. There's been some games where I'm like, all right, what the hell is going on here? But for the most part, it hasn't felt as oppressive because I think the game design is so good right now that after 2.5 years of double shield, it doesn't feel that bad to me. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be problems, but it's also important for us. And this is where it's so weird that we're at the point on this podcast where I have to sit here and say, well, maybe we're the problem, right? Because it's been so many years of like, oh, Blizzard, you got to do this, you got to do this. There's no way to make it perfect. And I think it can be better, but for me, it hasn't been a game-ruining experience. It just hasn't been, because at least now I can express my skill way better on my role to where like I have a chance to make up the difference, unless it's just the only time where it's been like, okay, I can't do anything. It's like when there's just a massive Zarya gap. And that's about it. That's about the only time where I haven't been like, okay, I can drop 60, 70 limbs and win this game. Mr. 666 on the Junker Queen. That's why that lobby was cursed. Frito. It was destiny. But no, I think it definitely has had some issues, but it has not been the worst I've ever seen.
I think the other thing to add on top of that is the fact that when this was announced how they were going to treat competitive, and they said we're going to do a soft reset, not a hard reset. And I, amongst others, was like, dude, nah, it's a new game. We need to have a hard reset. We need to send everyone back to zero. I feel like in many ways the community has forgotten that we did have a reset, that they were begging for a reset. They were very angry that there wasn't a harder reset. And now we've had a soft reset. There is a lot of people in ranks they shouldn't be. There is a lot of people who have to climb up to ranks that they want to be. And yet there's been a little bit of collective amnesia where everyone's like, I don't understand why my games are so bad. Dude, that's how a
Keep your
soft
energy.
reset works. People are gonna be in the incorrect rank, they're gonna find their way up.
Mhm,
So there's definitely a bit of that. But
mhm.
there might also be legitimate grievances as well. Flats, you kind of felt, you said you were, I think earlier you mentioned you were getting egoed by like 3,700
No,
players in your
3,100.
lobbies.
3,100.
3,100 players in your lobbies.
Yeah.
Okay. So how's it been for you?
Maybe it's how much tank have you guys played? Because I feel the same way, but the ones that are very lopsided are very lopsided. Like, I'm not that guy. I don't
haven't
really
played
check
too
people's.
much, but it have been.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't check profiles all the time, right? I really don't. The only time I ever check is when I notice that their Ana has 12,000 healing and ours has 3. And I'm like, that's quite odd, you know? Because like I take a lot of damage and I've been dying a lot. Like, you know, like something's not totally right here. And you know, I even had a game where we literally were in last fight. They had already naded early. They had no ults. I was like, dude, we just trank in our Winston here. We win the game. I was playing DPS on it, and we just didn't. Our Winston died. Then we popped trank, and then they just started yelling at our Winston. I was like, dude, what am I playing in right now? Like, what's this? What is this elo? But the same thing has happened to me on tank as well, where it's like, okay, like, you know, like let's nano in here. We engage in. We just hold W and we kill them. Held W. I never got the nano. I'm like, okay, I got debated, but it's fine. We can still win this. And I turn back and like literally nobody turned the corner. And I'm like, huh, that's odd. So I agree with you. I actually am in the camp that the reason people are upset about the resets is because, again, of Blizzard communication. It's not because they didn't want it. It's because they just didn't say anything. Like, they just said, like, no, we're like, they didn't say it. Like, they said, no, we're not giving a reset. No, we're not. Like, I think they kind of like alluded to like a soft reset in some places, but like other than that, they just didn't say anything. And again, no communication. Everyone places bronze 5. Myself and some others like, oh, you guys are just placebo, like copium, you know, like, oh, you think like you shouldn't have placed bronze 5. Then Blizzard comes out and says that there's a bug and some people got placed bronze 5 out of a bug, and we're now boosting your way to rank up. It doesn't say how you're getting boosted, how fast it is. Like, are people still getting boosted up? Like, is that through all of the ranks? Like, are there people that were diamond last season who maybe are a little bit better at the game than someone else that like is returning to the game that used to be diamond? But that person who's returning to the game that used to be diamond went to play Apex and like they got really good at like shooting in Apex. So like they're actually a better player now than when they were then. And so they've accelerated past them, but they're, you know, like there's just like these weird, there's this misunderstanding that like nobody knows what the fuck is happening. And I think that's the problem, because like people are saying like, oh, I have diamond players on my team. Oh, I've had that. I had a game where I was GM3 and I had a diamond 5 on my team. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, you know, but it's like, what was their MMR on the back end? Maybe it was like 3,700, maybe it was 3,800. They could have actually like held out in that game, but like, how are we supposed to know these things? So I agree with you. I think it is a little bit of like players kind of just like, didn't we want this? And the answer is yes. And I think it's good. Yes. But I think all of this information being like hidden behind the shadows and being like very obscure and no one says anything. And it's like, you kind of have to feel it out. And like big streamers are asking each other, like I heard like Summit was trying to ask other people, like, how does the rank system even work? Nobody knows how it works, because like some games people think they won 7 in a row, but you actually went 7 and 5. They just don't show your losses and you forgot about your losses, and so your rank didn't move. Or like, did you actually win 7 in a row? Like, the problem is there's no one's talking about how it actually works. If we had rules, we had things laid out, guidelines, like Apex says, like, hey, every season you get reset 1 rank and a half. Boom. Now you know what's going to happen. But if they don't tell you, then nobody knows, you know? So I'm with you. I agree. But at the same time, I'm actually not mad at people being upset about it because I think they're being deceived in some ways.
Yeah, there's like a lot of mystery, right? And mystery breeds conspiracy. There's a lot of like, because I've seen one theory floating around is, oh, the reason they made it so that you only see it after 7 wins is because they're trying to hide how bad their matchmaking is. Like they did this on purpose so they could still put diamond players in your GM lobbies, but then you could just hide it, right? And I think, like you said, Flats, this air of mystery of like, well, firstly, I don't always know what my rank is. I don't know I don't know if I'm getting closer to ranking up or closer to deranking as I'm playing the game. And then I don't know what's going on in my lobbies, like who is in my lobby. And we'll get to the leaderboards as well in a minute, because I know that's been a real problem amongst the streamers and the high end players of like, well, where am I on the leaderboard? But Frito, is the mystery part of the plan?
Yes, great segue, because that's exactly what was going to be my point, is that I agree with everything that was said here, but at the same time, I appreciate the mystery because I think the goal of it is stop worrying about it and play the game. Like just win the game in front of you, despite what the matchmaker is doing. So more clarity to some degree is like good, so we know what to expect. But also, I think it's very intentional to mystify all of it and blur it and say, just hit the button again and keep going and let it figure it out. Now, that's hard to have faith in when then it also doesn't work. So they have to fix it so that it's actually reliable in order for us to put the blindfolds on and just look at the game in front of you. Easy for me to say as one of the trash cans that gets pulled up into the higher ranked games sometimes and play with pros. But from their perspective, it's like, well, why do I get this? But I just feel like in Overwatch, it's always easier to just expect your teammates will never be good. Okay, never. It's not going to happen. Maybe just because it's a match-made game, people have different play styles, different approaches, different hero pools. It's so random that that's just like the way the game works. So I'm very happy to hear Samito's optimistic take about the matchmaker, because that is the one I'm going to hold anyone accountable to that asked for a full MMR reset when I tried to tell you guys that it would just make bad matchmaking. And now we have a partial one. And a lot of these same people are like, man, geez, this matchmaker sure is inaccurate. It's like, well, you wanted it to be less accurate than it is now, right? It would have just been worse for longer if we got a full, which you just commit to whichever thing you want, right? If you say you want that, that's fine. Like, but it means you're going to have to drop, 10 limbs per life in some games in order to win that game. Like, that's just, it's in Valorant the same way. Okay. It happens the same thing. Like, you're designated as the player who's going to need to basically not have a mistake the whole game in order for your team to win sometimes. And other times you're going to get pulled up. If you're not like a 5,000 SR player, you're going to get pulled up into a game that's too challenging for you. And that's the way an ELO system is supposed to work. Like, people have this theory that like we're all at a specific SR number and our outputs are always the same. Well, is that even true for OWL players? Like, a meta changes or a matchup is different or someone gets resources, someone doesn't. It's like the game's too complicated for that. That doesn't happen. Like, the game's mismatched in general, right? And players that are better at off tanks right now are going to be better at tank than when we have a Winston meta, for example. And to that point, there's been a lot of comments thrown around about Zarya. It's like, Zarya is overtuned, in my opinion, but also the community is underdeveloped at the things that would counter her. Like, if you were good at playing Winston dive and actually knew how to manipulate the map and take positioning, but nobody wants to do any of that. They just want to sort of like vaguely hold position and have more abilities. And that's what Zarya does. So it's like she can brawl it up and is forgiving. It is easy to play with randoms and you don't have to think too much or coordinate. And so she's got to get nerfed.
You're right, though. You're right. That is the truth. But Diva gatekeeps that. So it's like, remember in old Goats, where instead of playing the counter to Goats, you just practice Goats, because they would swap like two things and counter your whole comp, and then like you'd have to swap all the way back, like that type of deal. Correct. That's why Zarya, I think, is so good, because Diva gatekeeps Winston right now, because Winston would shit on her.
I would say that is true for your rank, but everyone thinks that without learning Winston is my point.
I wouldn't jump that gun yet. There's some rumors about Winston right now. I don't know if they're true, but Flats, it might be your time to shine.
Yeah,
all right.
I thought in pro play, it was on my original list. Everyone shit on me for it. I said that Winston would be meta in like OWL, like top tier play, because that bubble, that shield is so hard to break. But like for like regular ladder, it's so hard to pull that comp off right now.
But carry on, Frito.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, what Flat's saying is true. It's like, and it's interesting how we're going to navigate this as a community because Diva's ability to just target Winston is way too easy and good. So it's like that's another problem. Is like if that's going to be the case, like is that how the game wants to be designed? Where, I say there's not counters in the game generally, but there's a few, and that's one of them at the moment. So I'm hoping her ability to just like exist and counter Winston goes down a bit. I would enjoy that. But I think in general the game does work like that, where most things there's like some leeway in the strategy. So that's why on the whole I'm happy. Like that's the type of thing they want to remove. Like that's where I think people get mixed up in how I've described this. It's not the goal of Overwatch 2 that you have Diva easily counters Winston. They were trying to reduce things like that in the game. And so I hope that they aspire to keep that consistent moving forward because I think most of the game does function that way.
Absolutely. And we will discuss in a second as well the apparent leaked patch notes of what might be changing coming soon and how they want to address particularly some of the tank balance. But on the just finishing off the concept of just the matchmaker itself, generally, like, how do you guys feel about the 7 wins being hidden and the 20 losses and stuff? Because I think there's been a lot of upset people about it in the higher elos, but I do think that for the majority of the players, like the medal ranks, I think it's been a real boon. It's been a real boon for them. I can't tell you the number of people who tell me that they are now encouraged to play rank because they don't have to constantly worry about like where their numbers going up or down. And I do think that the reason so many more people are playing right now and so many more people are playing comp is partly because for the normal person, that anxiety is what keeps them way away from the game way more than any gameplay, any like balance concern. It's that anxiety of like, oh god, I mean, I placed one time and it was gold, but like if I play again, like what if I end up in silver now and like I lose one game every time I do my placements and the number starts going down and I start worrying that I'm gonna be crap, so I'm just never gonna play. I'm gonna play one game and never gonna play again. And I think that being taken away from the player is really great. Although obviously it comes with its downsides. Obviously it comes with the fact that there's nothing. I don't think there's going to be many more frustrating feelings than winning 7 games and then seeing that rank screen where it's like the numbers, like you're watching your icon, it goes, "Meh," and it just stays the fucking same, and you're like, well, what the fuck was that all for then? What the fuck was the
So
7 games that I just played? Go ahead, Flats.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I think last time we had a podcast back in September, I was like, oh, this sounds great because like it's going to remove the anxiety of people playing, which is awesome. But I always wonder every time I see someone say this sentence, did you win 7 games in a row? Or did you win 7 games collective at some point in the last 12, 15, 18 games you played? Because if we're not being truthful that you lost no games during those 7 wins, then the numbers, if you went like say 7-6 or 7-7 or 7-8, those losses didn't disappear all of a sudden. So it's like, I'm cool with changing the not having the number. I think the number going down, or like, like people freaking out like the number's going down. Like people were losing it. Like, I understand the anxiety behind that totally. But I also think we're not being totally truthful to the players of like, yeah, you won 7 games, but you also lost 8. So
Yeah, that's definitely like a teething issue as well. And also you got to think if skill division is 100 SR, like you have to go at least 7-3 to get that. If you're going net 25 per win, right? You need the net 4 gain, right, to go up the skill division potentially. So even if you went, let's say 7-5, and you're like, I had a positive win rate, doesn't necessarily mean you gained enough to go up the skill tier division.
There is
right? You might
boosts
have
though too. Just
there
remember
is
that.
boost.
There's boosts at the start of the season. If you've played a lot, then they would have fallen short. But yes.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on. Go ahead, Frito.
Yeah, I was just thought I'd jump in quick with my little story because I actually like it personally. I feel as a player who so I got reset into plat, right? That's where I placed, and then I grinded and grinded and grinded, and I was just constantly ranking up each time. Boom, boom, boom. 3 sub tiers, and then 2 sub tiers every time, and then I finally got where I thought I was in shooting distance of getting the GM. Okay, I was Masters 2, and I've been going up 2 skill divisions each time, and those games were rough, like a lot of really close games. And also, as kind of SV was saying, I think being the carry of the matchmaker is the hardest to do from support. It's possible, but it's the hardest, especially if you have a bad tank matchup. A bunch of those games in a row, and I went down 1, and I was like, Oh, and I had to think about it. I had to reflect. I had to be honest with myself. And this is what it's supposed to do. Not everybody does this, but be honest with myself and reflect. I'm like, did I put up a aspiring to be GM performance in these last X amount of games? How many games have I even lost? I don't even remember. It's like sort of what Flats is saying. It's like, I know there's a bunch of close ones, and the really close games in Overwatch often feel like a win, right? Because it's like, oh, we just barely could have been one team fight, one ability here or there, and we would have won the game, but you didn't though, right? So um, I feel this gives me the opportunity, rather than to be angry each time I lose, to sort of give a play session sort of its own identity, sort of in the same way that they're giving seasons a personality a bit with the new changes, new heroes, etc. It's like in that 7-game block, when you're outside of the boost range, and it's just like, okay, now you're stabilizing. Are you going to go down 1, up 2, or whatever? It forced me to like think what I'm going to have to do in order to rank up what was my highest role, which was support. And I think the more we adopt that perspective, and the more we can actually have faith in the system working once they fix it, that might be a better world than constantly going up and down. But I will say, for GM and top 500, that needs to be like super clear, because everything I just said now applies to the bottom 99%. And then for the actual leaderboard, where you look at, that should be like a pecking order, as competitive as possible, as transparent as possible. And I'm sure that's probably a point Samito wants to make. So I will yield that point to him.
So, another point that I want to make here about, I kind of made this point earlier, where it's like, okay, Blizzard's got the point, got the game to the point where we have to start taking a step back and evaluating like kind of our takes as competitive players and streamers, right? With this new system, I would never have ever seen my IRL friends play as much competitive as they are right now in my dreams with the old system. For your average casual player who wants to just get in the game, as Frito said, get and play the game, it can be better, but it actually was a great idea. I'm a big guy on information is important. My buddy Pat and my buddy Blake, who's the Rhyme player that helps that coaches at UK with me, they've been grinding, and they never would have played comp, but like I hear them in Discord every night, like kind of playing, and like it's about like the actual gameplay now. So I think for your average player, like when you want to get more serious, I think an easy answer would be just have like a more details, like advanced toggleable option to see match history. I'm not sure how feasible that would be, to where like, okay, if you're a player, you don't like seeing that, well, okay, here's the simple version where, it is what it is now, right? But if you want to see the advanced stats, the advanced details, maybe there's just an option to just toggle it, similar to like privating or unprivating a career profile. That could be a really easy answer. I'm really surprised as to, how much this is actually getting your average medal rank person to play. And that's a good thing to see. And again, I've been on the information is essential train, but then again, I'm also somebody who knows how to read that information. And I've heard my roommate try to play in gold and start raging at the game. And I'm like, okay, well, there's some things you're right about, but like, there's a couple things that are not like, completely on the money. He uninstalled it because of Kiriko the other day, by the way. He and Pat went 50-10 or 60-10 and lost the game because their hog was like negative. And he was like, dude, I can't, they're double immortal. I can't play the game. I'm like, dude, it's just one, right? Like sometimes like the important thing in Overwatch is when you get those games, especially in Overwatch 2 with that tank gap, compartmentalize and go next, right? If you want to keep playing. But with this new system, it's all about the gameplay. And I've seen like people who never would be able to manage like sitting down and like grind for it. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits, because this game has to appeal to that audience. You have to get people playing the game. So I'm not sure how to feel. I think the higher up you get, I think Frito was going right. I want to see my information. I want to know it. Like I know how to read it. I've had to study it for years. The more info for me, the better. But for your average player in the middle ranks, I don't know if I can argue that it's a bad thing. I really don't. If it gets them to play the game when they wouldn't play the game, you got to tip the hat and say, maybe there's something here. I think an easy answer, though, just a toggleable option for like an advanced mode or a simple mode. Simple mode, because let's be real, your average medal rank player probably doesn't care. But if you do care, you should have the option to really see more and learn more.
Well, I was just going to chime in to say that having spoken to devs enough recently, I think when you say a solution, I think to them that's I don't know, like a year of work or something crazy, because that's like a huge UI,
Yeah, true.
like a
Yeah,
huge
true.
UI
True.
demand. So,
Absolutely true. And
uh,
so it's probably not too feasible right now. And I want to give them credit. And by the way, it seems like for all the grilling that we've had to do over the years, there's a different energy with this dev team right now. It's different. Something is just different, and I really like it. I really, really like it.
is there a solution, Flats, that you can kind of see for like the high? Because that's, I mean, obviously we always hear from a certain biased subsection, which is streamers are generally very good at the game, so they always kind of speak for that top 100. So when we look at Overwatch social media, there's a lot of complaints about this leaderboard. But do you think there's like a solution that's potentially feasible to kind of alleviate their concerns?
I mean, it's tough to say. It's because there's certain things that, to me, make no sense. Like certain things like, why can't I see my own rank in comp? Like on my own side, Like, was that another part of their process of, oh, we don't want to like, remind people constantly of what their rank is? Even on the screen where you open your career profile, it's so small, you have to squint or get close to see what the bottom number is. And at some point, we have to balance what is blindfolding and leading along, and like, let me walk a little on my own here, because I don't disagree. I think that the system actually isn't the worst. Like, getting people to play all the time, that's a good thing. Honestly, like, props to you. Like, you've accomplished the impossible. However, though, if we've learned anything about competitive games over the years, is that if you let your high level comp die, then nobody wants to play it because there's nothing to work towards. It's the same reason why we need to bring stacking back, because I don't know if anyone's seen recently, but there's been a lot of like, I've been playing a lot with like Emong and Seagull, and we played with like CarQ and Tim and Jay at certain points. There was other streamer stacks going. All the big streamers like I think like Timmy's and Shroud and all them are all stacking at night and like learning how to play comp, and like ranking up together. Like, these are the things. Like, imagine they 5-stacked all the way up to GM, and then they couldn't stack anymore. They'd be like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, excuse me? And I think that, right now, everything's like, it's still new, it's still fresh, it's fine. Like, everyone's willing to look past these things. But in a month or two's time, if they're not fixed and they're not started to given a little bit more of attention to it, people are going to get turned off to it. Because right now, nobody cares. Like, dude, I could go play quick play for 5 hours and people wouldn't even care. Like, they wouldn't even complain. What are they going to know the difference? They barely can tell the difference. So that's one end of it. But on the other end, if you want your competitive game to be alive for a long time and to be competitive, then there has to be some integrity to it. And right now, it's just kind of blindfold and random a little bit. Like, there is a way it works, but we aren't being told how it works. And that's the problem. It's the same thing I would think of as like in a tournament, right? Let's say you're having a tournament coming up, and the tournament advisors knew that if you lost the first map, the team that lost the first map could choose the second one. But you didn't tell everyone the rules that before ahead of time. Well, teams could have prepared before time, like, okay, let's get really good at this map first, but on the second one, let's get like, we only practice this one map type, because if we lose the first one, we can play this one map we're really strong on, and you can strategize for that. But then, like, it's a good thing for have the losers choose the next map because it gives them a chance, but it's a bad thing because you didn't tell them ahead of time. And that's where I feel like we are right now. It's like, fundamentally, it's a good idea, but we're fucking up the process again, and we're fucking up the communication again. So I don't have a great solution for it, but like, for example, whoever's rank 1 right now, not if you're rank 2, you don't even know how many games you have to win to be rank 1. Those are things that are not competitive. That's not competitive. It's not. Don't lie to me. It's not. So we got to figure those out somehow. I don't have a great answer for you, but something's got to change.
I think this is a sentiment EVA really like kind of hammered home last time on the podcast, which is that a lot of great things have been done, but not a lot of explicit communication has been done to let everyone know what's being done. But Frito, is that like, I feel like maybe you do you agree with what Class just said?
Yeah, it's interesting. excuse me, to hear Flat say all this, because these are my exact words at the launch of Overwatch 1, where everyone was bright-eyed and optimistic. And I said all of these things, okay? Everything you just said, I always say, oh, the game integrity matters. Like, what's the point of it being a team-based game if you get punished for playing in a team? I've been saying these, you're playing the hits, man. So I'm jamming along, like listening. But 6 years later, like I'm more jaded to this, to all that. And so it's difficult for me to have confidence that we can get it. Like, I lost that war, right? And so I'm the jaded old soldier back from battle hardened. I'm just like, there's every effort is fruitless. Just deal with the world as it is. Don't try to be a revolutionary. And Flats is young, trying to fight the good fight still. Granted, we do have a different philosophy. So, and leadership and people in different positions now. So maybe the perspective is changing on that. But so yeah, I definitely agree with all that stuff. Like I'm looking forward to what other things they keep adding to the game in terms of modes and extra depth for the most hardcore players. Like, I think we're all in agreement that what we have now is good for the masses to like tap in. But I'm just going to flat out say it's unacceptable for your top 500 leaderboard to feel like a less casual than Splatoon or something. Like, that's how it feels. It's sort of like, like you don't really know where you stand and it's all vague and like nobody likes that. So the people who get there don't want it to look like that. So why are you handcuffing their ability to understand their pecking order? They didn't ask for that. Like that's a 99% thing that you're doing well. But then on top of that, I want them to make this. Aaron Keller said this is coming. Tournament mode, something that I would be interested in tapping into. That's what I'm looking forward to when it comes to like the team stuff. The little changes here or there. Maybe we can pressure them to get like at least 3 stacking to be okay in GM. But it's like these are just issues that I felt I've already died and fought the good fight on. So like I just give up on them and anyway. Along with the many pet issues I have forgotten over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a core theme that we've kind of brought up many times over the years, is that, well, who is this game for, right? And we've all kind of said we want more people to play it. We all want a huge wave of people coming in, but then you have this competitive mode. Competitive mode has to be competitive. I think even Aaron Keller in an interview a while back said, look, we really want the competitive mode to be the core of Overwatch 2. Like going forwards, we really want it to be like proper. We want it to really re-emphasize the importance of it. And then, like Frito said, like Flats said, this is just kind of, it's something that we can accept right now, I think because we understand there's a lot of pressure on the devs. Again, must be reminded it is an early access, that it is not the finished product. It's not everything they wanted to put out. But again, I do think that there's a timer on that, and there's only so many people you can piss off so many times before they don't come back, right? And that's kind of what we suffered in Overwatch 1 a lot, where we pissed off too many people too many times and then they never touched the game again. And obviously, if this rank system works in the same way, where people are getting the GM and they're like, well, what was the point of all of that? Because I gotta wait 2 weeks before I even find out if I'm top 500. Then there's this top 500 bug we haven't even spoken about, where people who should be top 500 aren't top 500. Sam being one of them, and I know he's upset about it.
I'm top
so it's
50.
Like these each,
yeah. GM4.
So, by the way,
yeah.
What?
I'm GM4. I'm like rank 50. Yeah.
Well, and this is weird thing where some people are lower in the tier division but higher on the ladder than other people. So it's a lot of suboptimal, right? It's not great.
I don't want to bust on him for it. I was really upset. I won't lie, dude. Like my last top 10 push was a while ago, and I earned those wins, dude. I was beating I was going on the Nero sugar-free stack every game, like Decay on Zarya. I'm like, dude, I haven't sweat that much since like my contenders days. And like I'm winning these games, and I'm like checking. Down bad, fellas. But hey, here's the good news though. I think they'll get to it. I do. But again, it's a bummer, but I think that timer is ticking SVB, and I think that's a great analogy that you made. But what would you say, like what if you had to ballpark the timer on that, just hypothetically, no, just completely out of left field, what would you say?
I think we're okay for now, because I think that there's a second season coming with a new hero. And I think that right now people are still in the Grace New Age phase, where they're like, I love all the new things Overwatch 2, despite whatever, Donkey may say. And then there'll be a new hero come season 2. People are like, I still want to tune in. I want to see this new hero, this new tank person. And I think if that point they're playing for like 2 weeks after that new release, and they're like, oh, well, the old system is still shit, and I still don't have any real reason to grind it. I think, and then remember after that, there's going to be a 2 season gap before the next hero comes out, right? So the next real thing that people are going to look forward to is going to be really big. So I feel like come season 2, they should have made at least some significant change, like at the start of season 2, as to how this thing works. Because I think you're then starting to really grate on a large subsection of people. Flats, you guys have any sort of
Yeah,
ballpark?
one thing I definitely wanted to say and reemphasize of what you said, and this maybe is my biggest pet peeve with Overwatch 1 that you brought up, which was the way it felt was that we always got too little, too late. And that was just the nature of the strategy of how they developed that game, where it's like, wow, everything's super fair, but the maintenance of the game always was bottlenecked by the small dev team and just the way they wanted to approach it. So you'd get systems that were always half baked. And that's where I go on my Flats-esque rants in 2016, 2017, where I'm like, the sky is falling, or the Lorax, right? I was the Lorax. I'm like trying to be like, listen, these are short-term ideas, like looking for group and all these other things. It's like, listen, why would we use looking for group if the matchmaking is so trash, no one would want to do it. There's no benefit to it. And at the time, a lot of the times when I would be critical of the devs and the game and the direction they're going, the overwhelming majority of the consensus of the Blizzard hopefuls who were enamored with the new game they finally made, and remember, just like the context was totally different. You have no idea how much different the atmosphere was. Like criticizing them was the thing you just didn't do, right? Like you're not allowed to do it on the internet, and also to the dev team themselves. It was seen as super rude. And all that turned out to be true, pretty much. Like the vast majority of the things that were decaying and the speed at which they were approaching it, the things they prioritized, the things they cared about, it was just there was a smug we know best direction over Overwatch 1, right? And I'm really trying to perceive a change, and I'm just trying to punctuate this point and over elaborate it, because what you're saying is we need to have a problem and see it be addressed on like a curve as we turn the corner. That's gonna be, I guess, my you're like billboard, okay? Overwatch 2, we're turning the corner. We're making changes and actually adjusting in time before it's too late. Because Overwatch 1, it's like years and years and years waiting for things, and with a smug like, wow, aren't we just so kind for updating it for you? It's like this not how the industry works anymore, Blizzard. You can't play by those rules. And they know that now, but the proof will be in the pudding when they actually deliver on fixing these things in a timely manner.
Flats?
That's pretty much it. I mean,
Nodders.
I think that, a month and a half is a pretty fair estimate, a couple weeks into season 2. That's when you're really going to start seeing people going, all right, I have a lot more time because Christmas is coming up, breaks are coming up, Thanksgiving comes up. A lot of those times a year, people have time at home with family. What do you do when you're at home with time with family and you don't want to be at the dinner table because your in-laws over or grandma's over and you're tired of hearing about the same thing a million times? You go play some video games for a while. Oh shit, the same problems are still with this video game that have been there for a few months now. It's kind of getting annoying. I agree. I hope that it changes. I hope that they've learned their lesson, and I hope that they're listening, and I hope they make those changes in a timely manner, and I hope they're good, because, I mean, a lot of the stuff that they've shown us has been good. So there's a lot of reasons to trust, because before there was a lot of reasons not to trust, because it was the same thing. We were told a million times that things would happen. They never happened. Now we've been told things that are going to happen, then they happened, and we're like, okay, well, all right. We're in the middle ground now. We're not like, okay, we're not trusting it completely yet, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. So show us what you got. I hope it's soon. I hope it's fast. I'd love for people to keep enjoying the game and playing the game. I can't scroll through TikTok more than 5 times without getting an Overwatch TikTok, which, granted, God, those are some cesspools of everyone complaining about Moira and shit. It's hilarious. But point being, I hope to see people are still excited about Overwatch in a month from now, a month and a half from now, season 2 from now, and are seeing that the game is improving and progressing, not going backwards like Overwatch 1.
Yeah, that's a funny point as well, because like it's funny seeing the discrepancy of what like the existing community has found frustrating, and then what like the new players coming in are finding frustrating. Where you're right, like there's been so much memeing and discourse about like Moira's right clicking and purple orbing and stuff, and I'm like, I thought we left this. I thought Samito even moved past this with the damage orb thing. Like I thought we went past this now. But like new
Never.
players coming in, like, what is this bullshit? She duels me for free. She flies in on the back line. She has an orb. How am I supposed to beat this character? So it's quite funny. The skill orb discourse has reemerged. But let's speak. So we are talking about the gameplay. Let's speak about this leaked patch. So I'm gonna pull it up on screen now. I'm gonna read out real quick, and then you guys tell me what you think is the kind of the highlights. So 4 characters are getting changes according to this leaked patch. So this is apparently leaked to the Owl players or some pro level. So this is what's gonna happen for the next
Which always happens,
Owl.
by the way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. A little bitter rant of like, the content creators, we kind of do our best to never leak, and then somehow every single time something happens to the pros, it always gets leaked. But anyways, we'll let that go. Clearly, I've
But
let
we
that
want
go.
more information, by the way. You never tell your pros anything. Wonder why.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, we're biased though. So Sombra hack ability lockout duration reduced from 1.75 to 1.5. So that's how long before you can start using your abilities again. Hacked enemies are no longer valid targets for hacking for the duration of the effect, so can't be rehacked. And hacked damage multiplier reduced from 40 to 25%. So remember, Summer receives a 40% buff at the moment to whoever she's damaging who she's hacked. And that's a lot. And to drop it down to 25 is also a lot. So that's a big change that we'll definitely talk about. Now, Genji, again, there's been a lot of talk about this one. Our poor boy Genji, Necros in shambles. Maximum ammo reduced from 30 to 24. Shuriken damage reduced from 29 to 27, which maybe to the normal player sounds like not that much, but those are actually really big numbers. So bear that in mind. Zarya, barrier duration reduced from 2.5 to 2 seconds. So how long her bubble lasts, unbroken. And then barrier cooldown increased from 10 to 11 seconds. So a little bit longer cooldown. And Diva, finally, fusion cannon spread increased. So the spread of her weapon is increased, making it, less effective against Winston heads. And booster damage impact reduced from 25 to 15. So guys, I'm gonna take it to Frito first. Frito, what screams to you from those 4 changes? Like, what's the one that you're like, this is the biggest one?
Well, it's always going to change. Anytime we talk about balance, it's going to be like, what tier of player are we talking about? I think the one that looks the 2 biggest gaps are Sombra's amplified damage and Zarya's bubble duration. Those 2 are the most important to me. I think with Sombra, the question is like, should you need focus fire to eliminate a hacked target or not? And that's like a question the dev team has to answer. And I think putting it at such a low number means the answer is yes. Because before that, she could just like outduel anything because she hacked it. And I think that's incredibly bad gameplay because she goes perma invis and can hack in invis. It's just a dumb way to play the game where you spoke about Moira earlier. That might be something we eventually want to talk about at some point. Because like in like average tier rank play, Moira is kind of the same, where she just sort of has abilities that kill you without much effort. And it's I feel like I've seen a lot of Moira players boosted because in the metal ranks you kind of just run at things and your character's hard to hit for them, and so that she just wins. And I don't know. I'd like to see her get a rework. But to the Zarya point, I think she's just too forgiving in ranked with how long the bubbles last, and the things that should punish her don't punish her hard enough because of it. So I look forward to seeing how that changes things. I'm not as attuned with the highest level of gameplay meta recently because I've been playing the game myself too much. Like normally I like watch a lot of streams or watch a lot of pro play. I'll be getting back to that so I can have a more informed opinion, but I'll yield to the high ranked players in the call to what this will change for the higher tiers.
So I'm gonna take it to Flats for the top like elo, and then I want to take it to Sam because I know Sam has been in touch with like actual like pro play. So Flats, how do you feel like this is gonna like? How do you think it's gonna impact ladder like your kind of area?
I mean, Zarya's uptime is the problem, right? Like, basically, so I was struggling at first with Zarya because I was just getting dueled by all the contender Zarya players. I'm like, I haven't played this character in 3 years. What the fuck am I gonna do against this? But Elon was like, yo, like this is how you play Zarya. You bubble at the beginning of the fight, wait till you have 1.5 bubbles, and walk in and just don't stop holding W. Bubble once, then if you need to, bubble again, and then your first bubble's actually back online, so you have a 3rd bubble. I'm like, holy shit, that's genius. So you have 2.5 seconds of bubble, then a second downtime, then 2.5 seconds of more bubble, then it goes down, then 2.5 more seconds of bubble. So you have like 9 seconds overall with like the little bit of in between of getting healed up or whatever that you just literally can't die in the middle of a fight. So you have supports that are running for their lives. You have DPS that need to scatter, which is why Sojourn and Genji are really good because they just dip out and they're gone. They're not dealing with your ass. So like her uptime is just so long you can't punish her. And the amount of Zaryas I've had walk at me, bubble, back away, then they bubble twice, and then it's like, dude, you just can't kill them. It's impossible. Like how long they sit there doing damage, it's just not feasible. So what I think it does to Zarya, it stops this playstyle of the raid boss can never die, and you have to be a little bit smarter with your playstyle. Get high energy, play a little bit more defensive, still beaming and doing a lot, but you can't just run at people. Like that's what it is right now. Like the meta right now is run at people, and then like they use their cooldowns to try to stop you. You block them and you kill them. If they change it to 2 seconds, that window has now not become half a second shorter. It's actually become a second and a half shorter because the 2.5 isn't once, it's twice or 3 times a fight, maybe 4 times a fight. So you're removing 2 seconds of bubble up time. Plus that reverts it to what it was before, which was much easier for players to pick up on the last 4, 5, 6 years of Zarya play of being able to time bubble. And I think Ace of Spades, I think I was watching a stream, said like, oh my god, that's why I can't figure out Zarya, because he's been trying to shatter Zaryas at the 2 second mark, and it's 2.5, and he didn't realize it was 2.5, so he kept shattering bubbles and not killing them. So I think Zarya will probably really drop out of meta at that point. Still be strong, but drop really far back. And I think she'll drop into like a Rein Zarya type dual brawl comp. But it'd be interesting. I think the interesting one is which one will take hold, Diva or Winston. Because that Diva nerf doesn't seem that significant. Because her blasters still do fine damage at close, and that's what does to blow up Winston. Not the spread doesn't matter a whole lot up close. The boop damage is pretty big because she's not going to be able to fly at Zens at Mach 10 and then do the melee boop combo with a few left clicks and they just disappear. So I guess that's actually an inadvertent buff for Zen, so enjoy that. But I think it probably goes towards Winston more at that point. I think Winston will become a lot better. I think Rein becomes a lot better because Zarya is just the off-tank version of Rein, in my opinion. They basically are the same character now, just one starts with low damage, can ramp up high. The other one starts with high damage, but that's it. And like they have to either be shielding or doing damage, so it's riskier. And there's like a chess match in between there. So I think high level on the tank side, we'll probably see more Winston. Zarya will probably come down. But DPS, dude, those are like character killing nerfs, I think. Like for Genji at least. Like if that's real, nah, like there's no way, right? Like that's way too much. You guys are going crazy. That's overkill.
Well, don't you know that with this meta, the reason why Genji's being picked is because Genji's too strong. Clearly, that was true in Overwatch 1 too.
Oh, so yeah, they wouldn't say this meta is all Sojourn. It's Genji. Oh man.
We'll
Sam,
see.
what's it been like in your experience? Because you've been obviously coaching, you've been following the pro level.
So, what's really interesting is I wonder if Zarya's issue is that she can just double self bubble. Like just not off topic, but kind of on topic here. I wonder if Zarya ever needed to have that change, right? Because I'm not gonna entirely write her off yet. But I think at least in terms of Genji, kiss him goodbye. I think I don't think that he. Again, there's a big difference, and we've talked about this a lot between a character filling into the meta and a character like actually forcing the meta, right? For example, in Overwatch 1, like everyone would always tell me like, oh, Hanzo's so broken. Like I played Hanzo in every meta since season 1 at a top 500 level. Every Hanzo player stats in double shield was down like 30-40%, but everyone would say Hanzo's broken because he could spam storm arrows. Hanzo was played because he filled in the double shield well, because he could force the immortality field, he could force Orisa Fortify by spamming shields, he could force Sigma Grass. So the big win cons that kept the double shield comp like so strong, Hanzo could force on his own. But if you look at him in this game when it comes to actual duels, he's not very good, right? So, Genji is like, he's not forcing the meta. Like, Genji is not the character that is making the meta. He just fits into it well because he can instantly clean up the fight with dash. When you're Zarya, can just beam through things at any point in time. Regardless of that, right? What direction is this meta going? I think you're probably going to see less Sombra. I don't think it's going to kill the character completely because EMP is obviously super, super strong. Like, she can, when you have a win con that's that good, it will never completely put the character at bottom tier. It'll just be harder to get to that point. I think Sojourn's the best DPS in the game, and it's not even going to be close, especially she's not going to get nerfed. You're going to see Sojourn pretty much all the time. What I've heard is, let's say and operate under the assumption that this patch is true. We don't know it. No one knows. We don't know. But let's, for this argument's sake, say that's true. Would the pro players have access to that patch? Like, is it live yet? Like, do we know? And if so, what would they be playing? Because if that's the case, like basically how we would used to do it, okay, well, the big patch is coming out, we don't have access. Well, we just won't play these heroes for now. Right? So if they're scrimming on this and at a contenders level or whatever it may be, if the patch isn't actually there and they're under the assumption that, because somehow, some way, my collegiate player got this patch before, like I'm looking through our team Discord about to go into scrims, and this kid's posting the patch. I'm like, buddy, how do you have these? Like, what is going on here? Like, I haven't heard anything about this. I assume these are false, right? But they wouldn't be able to, like, for example, they probably wouldn't be scrimming Zarya at all, even if she was nerfed. So I don't know what direction it's going. That's why I heard a rumor that a lot of people might just be practicing Winston or other tanks right now, because I don't know if the patch is even out. No, I don't think anybody knows. But let's say that the Zarya nerf comes through. I think Zarya on push would still be very good. It comes down to the fact, can you burst the Winston bubble fast enough to actually burn him with charge to where he wouldn't be played, or the D.Va wouldn't, because Zarya kind of gatekeeps D.Va too. If Zarya is really strong, it's harder to play D.Va into that because, she just beams her and farms. I personally love Lucio Kiriko. I've been having my team one-trick Lucio Kiriko, and the difference in play with Kitsune Rush and that kind of rush, it's almost like Kiriko fills this role of a hybrid between Moira and Ana, right? Because she doesn't have the big AoE heal that Moira has. She kind of heals a lot like Ana, but her single target healing is really, really good. You just play to build Kitsune, and if you try to fight in Kitsune Rush, good luck. You're done. You're not winning that fight. You're not. It is BAP window on steroids because it controls way more space, especially on the linear maps, right? So if this patch comes out, I think you actually see the good Reaper guy come back. Because I don't know if y'all have seen a Reaper in Kitsune, and especially if Monkey is good. Because what basically the thing is, if Lucio Kiriko is good, the one reason I think Winston might be good is because if you build the Primal, there's nothing that can really stop a good Winston from primaling the backline and getting big kills. So that role for the tank is going to be super, super competitive. But if it's BAP, you probably could see a lot of Rhine or some other stuff like that. Flats, for example, because BAP and Rhine, the BAP Rhine rush of you saw London running it all year, who were very good with it, right? It's maybe some May will come back too, but I think the good news is it's very, very up in the air right now. But if Kiriko ends up being meta, I think it goes Reaper and maybe Zarya, Winston, D.Va. It's up in the air right now, but I don't think anybody really knows. But Reaper, Blossom, and Kiriko, just go next fight. It's over.
I ran with Seagull and Emong. We've 5 minute and 35 second or something like that. Icon wall attacked with Zarya, Reaper just TP'd in, bubble, just
bubble TP. That's literally all we're doing. I'm having my team one trick that. I'm saying literally your Reaper just TPs in. This is something you used to see Dallas Fuel do with Sparkle, in season 3 or 4, where he just TP in and you'd bubble him. It's called the Alpha TP. You used to do it on East Coast all the time, where we would get our rank stacks, bring it back, Blizzard. Don't make the same damn mistake. You just literally the Alpha TP. We just TP straight into teams and just rip Blossom, and it would work because they're just boosted from goats. They wouldn't know what to do. So yeah, I think I'm really bullish on Zarya, Reaper, Lucio Kiriko. I think it's slept on right now. But I think if this patch is true, obviously Genji's dead. No chance. Yeah. No chance he survives this. No chance. And I can't wait to see that happen, because then we'll all be like, did we learn our lesson last time? But we'll see. But yeah, I'm excited. I think it'll be a good patch. I think it will be a good meta, and it really addresses Sombra, who I personally think, and this goes way back. I remember Zachary tweeting about this back in the day. I agree with him 100%. Perma stealth was the dumbest change they could have made to that character, because it baits, not only is it corny at high level play, but it baits low ranked players. I did a Sombra review to just stay in stealth the whole game, and the whole time you're in stealth, it's
baiting.
This was a big problem with old school Overwatch design, where, and this is something I'd love to talk to the devs about a little bit, where it seemed like a lot of the design characters were very misleading, especially to your average player. Like, for example, Brig, I talk about this all the time. She's a melee character, but you're supposed to play her at range, right? So, like, it's very misleading to the player. So, Sombra, like, oh, these normal players can be like, dude, I'm permanently invis. They can't see me. This is so cool. But you're literally down a player. Yeah, they can't know me, team. How are we losing? It's like, dude, you were stealth for 2 minutes of that 4-minute round. Like, I kind of miss the rhythm of that Sombra. So I think that's actually something in general Overwatch can work on with like hero design. It's like, hey, let's try to let's I mean, Frito, you talk about all the time the gap in between like how the average community performs compared to the highest level play. And a little bit of that is on the game and how it's actually trying to teach its players. I think personally. Sorry to go off topic there, but it's kind of like one big
No,
net.
it's a
I
really
love
good
that
relevant
subject.
point, actually. Go ahead, Frito.
Oh yeah, you can go too. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was saying about like Moira as well, and I think to the degree that like Zarya is too forgiving and has the same kind of effect. It's like you never want to enable someone. So there's for better and worse. Like what Sam's talking about with Sombra, it's like that's for worse. That's like the character sort of implying you should do a thing you shouldn't do, which is like be out of the fight. You like you want to use that to be in the fight, and for some reason it's like it just uh players lose that. But I think also with the stealth timer that still happened as well. And I think just in general, like any character that is a big spacing timing style character, like Brig is your other example. She's another one where it's like rotate in the fight and always be in position. Sombra's the same thing. Like their mechanics aren't that difficult, right? But average players struggle with this. And I just don't know how we'll ever get these like COD and Apex players up to speed with this like foundational thing about Overwatch of playing with your team. Like I don't know if it will ever happen, and I'm not sure. Like I agree with the points made that like they should be designed better. Like I don't want DPS Moira to just boost people out of those ranks where it's like I just vaguely look at something and kill it. I don't like that. I don't like Zarya being too good. Those things. I'm very interested in a lot of the points that got made though as well, just in general. Although I haven't been watching the current high level gameplay very much, I do listen to a lot of the commentators on it, and it seems like there's mixed reviews of Kiriko at the moment, where some teams have some faith in her, but a lot of high level players think that Kiriko sucks, and like I'm like 50-50 on it because there's I think in ranked I've seen Kiriko suck. Like be a useless character, like worse than Moira actually, because as Moira you can do the free damage thing at least and like accidentally kill some things. Kiriko is so skill dependent and requires the aggression that Sam's talking about to work, and it's so much coordination that like in my experience I don't have much faith in her at all, and I just think like there's so many easier routes to support value. My curiosity with it is like I think the potential is there. Like I had always said this about the character. We've talked about her in the past show, I think. But like I felt like the skill ceiling of the character is so high, you have to imagine someone's going to master it and get it to work. But if it's too difficult, like I don't know. It's interesting that like you're still scrimming Zarya even though it's going to be nerfed. Like I'm curious if as Flats described with the cooldown cycling of the uptime that you lose, I think the big gap of whether Zarya will still be high level viable or not is like if that window is so high that you can actually outpoke her and have a chance to kill her. Right. Whereas right now, I think she's just so forgiving with the stats that like she holds the front line forever and also can flexibly like interact with the rest of the game. Whereas a character like Orisa is much more fair in contrast, or Junker Queen. Let's say like Orisa or Junker Queen. Orisa's the really defensive one, and Junker Queen's the really aggressive one. Zarya can kind of choose which type of brawl she wants to go for. She can be like, all right, we're going to outplay ults by bubbling them, or we're going to go in deep. And she can do either. And that's what kind of makes her, I think, the default easy mode tank. So anyway, hero bans.
Yeah. There we go.
Bingo.
Bingo.
How great is StarCraft 2, by the way? No, yeah, I mean, I think there's so many really good points, actually, so many good directions to go about. I like Sam's point as well about counterintuitivity because it's really funny. I made a guide video last week on like which supports to pick in Overwatch 2. And I talked about Brig, and I was like, look, Brig, fantastic hero to anchor. And like actually with her packs, you can actually hit flankers from range with like your flankers. So they can actually win duels, just like you pack them and they just win a duel. So like she's a great team. She's a great character to just anchor around you, like anchor with your team. And then like one of the most upvoted comments was like, you know, I like this video, but I really disagree with what you said about Brig. I've been finding that I just sit with my tank and I frontline with them and I charge in their backline all the time. And that's really successful. Like, I just play with my Reinhardt and I win loads of games. And I'm like, oh,
I've heard the
dude,
same
oh,
thing, dude.
I've
I've
heard
heard
it
this a
too.
lot.
I'm just like, oh my, but this is exactly what you said. Like, it is counterintuitive, right? It's like the character kind of leads you to be like, yeah, well, this is like a mini tank. So you should be right up in there. And I wonder if, like, yeah, a lot of the, like, these discrepancies that we see, like Genji's another character, like, we're talking about, like, well, he's dead. But for players in the middle ranks, they're just like,
Margin for
they
error is
just
so
don't
high,
get
you can do so much on any
exactly,
character. That's the issue. It's like
exactly.
the big difference, and this is the big hero design philosophy where like they had to change it like a little while ago. It's that, when the difference between low level play and high level play. Like I had my tweet yesterday where I listed like the worst heroes for each category. And I said Sim was like one of the worst, if not the worst DPS in the game. And a lot of people were, and Mercy too, a lot of people were upset at that. And I was like, look, like I'm not saying these heroes aren't playable, right? It's just like, in your average rank, of course you can get value on it because again, like everyone's misplaying so much that the margin for error is just so high that you can get away with really anything based on your own player skill, right? And that's just something that a lot of people like just don't quite, it's not that they don't understand, like they get it, but like there's a little bit of a disconnect in terms of like the thought process of like when I'm explaining this or like you're explaining this right now to what actually is put into practice. It's like, well, no, we're all on the same, like, I'm not disagreeing with you. We're all on the same page, but like, it's just not communicated very well.
No. And I wonder another facet is I wonder if like popularity has anything to play with this, where it's like, because this is like the second time now. The Genji's been buffed. He's been meta for like literally 2 weeks. And then he gets like this hard hammer blow and Genji mains his cry. I wonder if it's just a consequence of there being a sheer ocean of waiting Genji main just lurking in the shadows for that buff, and then they arrive in plat all in one unison. They reinstall the game, they come in, they destroy the games in plat with their 10,000 hours of Genji gameplay looks like, and then everyone hates it in the metal ranks, and then obviously at the higher tier we're like, oh, he couldn't even be meta for 2 weeks without you guys just thumbstring him. Flats, you feel like the popularity here has something to do with this?
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to have your mythic skin in the battle pass, the biggest thing at your season is based around that character, get absolutely dumpstered at the 3-4 week mark. Like, oh, man, dude, I think it's like one of those things where it happened a lot in Overwatch 1, where things like characters like Reinhardt became meta, and it's like everyone in all the tank players like playing Rein, or a lot of them do, right? A lot of them like the matchup because then you get to play Zarya, you get to play Diva. It not only enables the tank player to get to play something fun, but it got to enable something fun for the off-tank player. Everyone was happy with it. It's very straightforward for everyone else. So, like, when Rein was strong, his pick rate probably went through the roof. His win rate went up. Like, everyone started playing it, right? But it's like, they have to understand that there's also, like people have their favorite hero biases. There are characters that are more popular than other characters. So, like, right now, and this is, I made a video about this. I haven't been legitimately mad about something that Blizzard put out into that first dev blog like a week and out. Remember last week? That dev blog they put out? That was just, dude, I was ready to go to war. Like, I was like, dude, you guys literally just slapped us. Like, who the fuck, like, what the fuck are you on about? They walked it back a little bit. They were like, well, we're actually gonna be making some balance changes at the midway point, all this stuff. But the way it was originally written was, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Zarya's not that strong because Reinhardt has a high win rate. Huh? Like, what? Then the top 500 leaderboard came out. It's nothing but pink hair. It's like, that's weird. Huh? Who would have thought that one was gonna look like that? And it's like, dude, there's gonna be characters that are easier and more fun for the general player base. It happens in every game out there. Like it's so annoying because if you balance around pick rates and win rates for those heroes that are picked, and people pick them more times than not because they just enjoy playing the character, you can't base it around all the gold players like to play Reinhardt, so Reinhardt must be strong. No, that makes no sense. Because if you get to Diamond, then you can't play the character anymore. Like, if that was theoretically true, every gold player could one-trick Reinhardt to Diamond, then hit a brick wall. Now what? Now they either start losing and the win rate falls apart, or they just play something different and they'll actually win their games. So, I think the same thing happens with Genji a little bit. especially these characters that have been around for such a long time and people love them and they have a very high skill cap. I think if Tracer was really strong, you'd see the same thing happen with Tracer. These Tracer players have been playing for a long, long time. But like, God, I don't have an answer for you, but it's like Genji is good, but he's not game-breakingly good. What is game-breakingly good is Nanoblade. Nanoblade wins every fight, no matter what, almost 90% of the time. The only thing that can stop it right now in Overwatch 2 is grab or beat perfectly timed, in my opinion. And honestly, that doesn't always happen either. So if you want to look at the part of Genji that's actually broken and actually frustrating to play against, I would argue Nanoblade is way more frustrating to play against than his neutral gameplay.
This is actually funny because this is a long time discussion. I remember, Sam, I think you were on the podcast with me with Seagull 2 years ago or something. And Seagull was like, dude, I love Genji, but just make it so they can't nano his blade. Just make it so that like he doesn't get the buff on the blade. Because like I hate that he's just a blade bot, and I wonder if that's
what he'll
part
turn
of this,
into.
like...
He'll be back into the same spot
Yeah,
again.
back in blade bot. Yeah, I'm not. You know what? Actually, I said I was gonna be reformed. I'm gonna do Blizzard the favor here and just and tee off on this for 1 second for all the Genji mains out there. Because look, I said I wasn't gonna do this anymore because I want other people to. I'm tired of being the bad guy, just trying to do the right thing for this game. And I just don't. I don't want it flat to try. I really appreciate you stepping up because I took a lot of heat on my rep for this, trying to help this shit, and I'm still taking heat for
it's
it.
It's annoying. It sucks.
I know, but I'm just gonna fight this fight one last time, okay? Blizzard. The most positively received thing about Overwatch 2 that you guys fixed was the fact that you guys made the gameplay fantastic. The neutral fights feel great. They're not oppressive. There are very few awful abilities in there, and I'm somebody who's had to flex to Genji since Season 1, okay? If the big problem with Genji is that the Nanoblade is just a huge win con. You see on the forums all the time. And this is why I really respect Seagull for coming out and saying, like, do not dumpster the 1 minute and 45 plus seconds of fun that Genji, one of the most unique characters in any FPS game ever to come out. Super hard to play, incredibly enticing. The Dragon Short is the most viewed animated short in the entirety of Overwatch's lifespan. It got me into the game. It got all my friends in the game. Genji is one of the fan favorites of the game. Do not dumpster one of the hardest heroes to play that has the most counters, that is the most neutral hero in the game. Don't dumpster his mid-fight if his ult is what leads him to win a lot of fights, right? Like, and again, like, I'm not saying Genji should be hard meta, but if we've learned anything from Overwatch 1. Remember in dive meta, everyone's like, oh, Genji's so OP, blah, blah, blah. Well, we nerfed Genji, right? He lost his ledge dash. He lost a lot of things. And what heroes continued to dominate post the dive nerfs? Tracer, D.Va, even went into some metas, I guess. Ana, Nano, right? So I really, really hope that, if the win rates and stats say that he's kind of dumpstering people, maybe one of those nerfs, but like I'd really look at Nanoblade. Like I'd really, really would look at that because I can assure you that all the Genji players, like they just want to load in the game and not do like P-brain damage to people who are out of position, to beams. Genji might be the most counterable hero in the game. Do y'all remember the hydration clip where he was on like when's the best time to use Dragon Blade? Never. Don't pull that thing. The second you pull it out, you're going to get hit with 4 ultimates, 5 cooldowns, smacked in the face, knocked from Hanamura all the way to Ilios. Like, whatever it was. But, like, please just don't go on the same path, guys. Like, you guys have done such a good job recently. Like, I'm not saying Genji should be hard meta. I don't think he is, right? I actually, in a lot of scrims, I'm not seeing that much Genji. I think he gets played quite a bit. I think he's just a pump stompy hero. But just take it light, and please don't be scared if he does need a nerf, which is possible in 5v5. I'm not saying that, whatever, but please look at that quickly because you got to send a message that you want this game to be shooter-oriented, high-skill, high-reward heroes should be what's good. And the fact that Genji's on that list before Sojourn we might be on different pages here, and I can assure you, Flat said that there's a lot of pink hair on the tank leaderboard. What color? So what skin is that with Sojourn? It's like a nice little like a gray with Sojourn's hair on her default skin. A nice little beautiful snowflakey gray, like right, like the nice little winter like hair rabbit. It just looks good, right? There's not much. There's a little bit of Genji on there, but I'm just saying it's concerning that we see Sojourn not get looked at and Genji first on that list. I would not send that message to your community. You got
I
a
have
chance
a theory
here.
on that.
What?
Go ahead.
I think remember they said before they want every season to have an identity. I think their identity
Yeah.
they want is Sojourn to be super strong in season 1. That's the identity they want because it's the new character.
Yeah,
but
true.
like, why is the other one getting dumpstered then? Like,
Fan favorite. Fan favorite.
But then Jungle Queen is kind of ass.
Well, because Kiriko counters her. Who's the newer hero? We can go
Oh,
down this
Zarya.
street.
He's
We've
really
done this
good.
before.
The new hero, man. I mean, Frito, what do you think this all comes down? Like, just Genji
I have a lot
in
to
general.
say. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I think the cool thing about getting on the show with you guys is I feel like as we discuss upcoming things, ever so often someone has like this like super big brain take, and on a lot of these subjects we take turns. Who's the one who's got it? So I'm gonna say I think there isn't a replacement for Genji's place in the game, and when Zarya gets worse, Genji gets better actually. So I think he's still the best flanker option overall for like the general game of Overwatch because of the positions you play, the coordination. As soon as dive starts to get better, he gets better. I actually think like some of his power was in check by there being a Zarya with high charge and bubbles to bubble his blade. He's just going to get better in the next patch based on the context of the game. Now, I could be wrong about the damage numbers, but from what I can tell, I don't know if it's going to significantly change a duel. Like his farm rate will go down. Like I just can't think of, because if you can triple headshot dash to kill now, but you no longer can triple headshot melee. It's like, is this a big change for me? I don't know if I think so. Like the next best flanker probably is Reaper. So maybe that's the case, but then Zarya went down, and that is like required in my opinion for Reaper to be good. Like the only viable comp with Reaper I think is Zarya. So yeah, it's a big map, a lot of big maps, a lot of high ground, and with Tracer being dumpstered, I still think Genji might be the best flanker by default. But that either is going to be a big brain take who's like 3D chessing the game and like seeing these other things go down, and then he kind of default goes up, or like I'm just like super wrong, and if you nerf damage at any point, characters get dumpstered. But that is my prediction that Genji will still be a good Overwatch hero, but. I think a problem now. This is going to the next point I want to make.
I think Sam wants to interject real quick. So Keith,
One
hold
thing
that next point.
to
Sam?
devil's advocate myself, to that this is important information. The DPS passive also does change things. That also is new in this
Yes.
game. So I want to just chime in there and just I kind of forgot about that for a second, but
I
continue.
meant to mention that as well. Like he is the biggest victor in that DPS passive because the whole genesis of his playstyle is getting more final blows or eliminations with the Swift strike. So chaining that together is like a big reason. And obviously that was going to happen when they did that. It was like, well, here's a DPS passive for Genji. It's like, here you go. Like it's almost like intentionally that they did that. And they're like, oh, wait, not. I don't know. I think they got to like decide what they want to see out of that. Because they had also said that they're willing to change it. Like they immediately said, well, here's a crazy DPS passive. Maybe we'll change it next season. I don't know. And this is just the new world that we're in with Overwatch 2, where it's not like before they were really precious about decisions and like, we've brought this up many times, but like being able to pick any hero always, not single pick, 6 divas. That used to be like, this is the core design of what Overwatch should be able to be. And now it's more like, well, here's a wacky passive that we might change in a few months. That's the new world we live in. But to Flats's point about the blog post, and I also think this goes to the big disparity and balancing problem they have with a character like Sojourn, is that for most players, I don't think Sojourn is a problem for you until you're in, like, as I say, let's say, Masters trying to be GM. Like, then you better be playing Sojourn on Hitscan because she's that good. And I don't know what Blizzard can do because I think there's a chance a lot of hit scans can fall into that category. And at one point or other, we're probably going to have Widow. And at one point, we're going to have Ashe or whatever if the numbers get tweaked enough. And hit scan as a concept is just going to be like a super strong thing in the game forever when there's not a lot of tanking in the way. So who can click heads better is going to be good. And my assumption is that the reason why they're not balancing Sojourn is that none of their stats dictate that she's a problem for most players. And so I don't know what they do. Do they balance for only the high end? And we need a consistent philosophy from them rather than me trying to Blizzard whisper it all the time, where they're probably right in saying that Reinhardt is like a super easy a character for players 70% of the skill bracket to play around. They know how to play that. They can kind of work together. They can use a shield. This is something that I've been like thinking about in content that I haven't had time to finish yet. But like a character like D.Va is such a trap for GM players to advise players to play. This is a big mistake that you're telling golds to play D.Va. What you don't understand what happens then is they play D.Va like it's Reinhardt or Zarya, and they just frontline and they get cooked and feed, and it's terrible. And then if they try to play D.Va, what I would say correctly, anti-dive, peel, like zip in and out, control high ground, coordinate, then their team are like, what are you doing, D.Va? Like frontline, like a tank is supposed to. And that's the reality. And that's there's going to be such a big gap here. Like, I just want to remind us all, a lot of the perception of players right now is that Orisa is like some unkillable nightmare pick that is uncounterable, right? This is the belief of most players. So the gap in understanding here, and we bring it up in so many different ways of like characters that are really strong, but nobody knows how to play. Like, balancing can't fix this problem is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't fix it for anyone, because there's always going to be some skill shot hero, I think, that's going to be top meta, unless there's some super broken coordination comp that exists. And on the other hand, the bottom 97% or so find certain playstyles easier to interact with until the learning curve of the game like stabilizes. I think like super late Overwatch 1, I was super happy with the community, like on average, that they knew like how many years did it take for you to hear a random person say the sentence, give 2 ticks. Okay, for at least for me. I mean, maybe in GM this always happens or something, but like for me, it took years for this really basic thing that every pro game had. All of them. This isn't a hard thing that a gold should not understand how it works, right? It's fast, it's easy. You can put it on a t-shirt, give 2 ticks, give 2 ticks. It's so fun to say, and it took years for that to happen. So my point is, like, there's a lot of basic Overwatch that isn't mainstream in Overwatch 2 yet, because we have all these new players that aren't from Overwatch 1. A lot of those difficult Overwatch specific concepts are still giving people a lot of problems, and I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if balance does it. And anyway, so I'd be fine with Sojourn getting nerfed. I don't mind. And I don't even think Genji needs to be nerfed either. Like I'm kind of devil's advocating this. But because I just think they're kind of screwed is my point. Like, they don't have a winning strategy in any case, because the gaps of problems that they're trying to fix with balance are just too wide.
I think in Sojourn's case here, I think an easy thing to do that's really annoying, especially the one tank, is just her railgun stays up for so long, like 8 seconds. Like that's original immortality field. So I think it's fine, like if you're in the mid fight, like having to consistently build it up. But like you can just charge it and hold it. Oh, 8 seconds. Oh, somebody come on a spawn. I can tap them once and reset that 8-second timer, right? So like all you have to do is quickly peek, and you just have a full Widow shot. So you're basically able to play Widow as Sojourn.
It's a movement too. Having a movement character of that capacity with a one tap is just game breaking.
So I think an easy start to that, because like I'm okay with her keeping her movement. I think that kind of makes her a little bit more unique. But I think tuning down the consistency of the one tap is an easy change for how easy it is to just maintain like your beam rate. You know, I think just like, hey, maybe after 2 seconds, like the only way you should get rewarded and have the chance to use that one tap is if you're aggressively playing and being like making moves, not sitting there like a cornball like me on the top of Eichenwald Castle. Toop, tap. Oh, I'm still 100 charge. You better not peek me. Yeah, I can do this game all day. It's like a game of chicken. It's like, oh, you're gonna peek? No, you're not, because I'm gonna shoot you. Oh, he peeked. Oh, my fault. Your Winston and tank peeked for 1 second to get charged. I tapped your bubble once, and I'm still 100 charge.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, thanks for the charge. Yeah. Well, I do say I do like the bubble giving reduced charge, like bubbles and shields, but it's just like that timer just needs to be tuned down a little bit. Like 2 seconds would be till the decay rate, and she'd still be good, I think. So. And that wouldn't ruin it in low level play, because at the end of the day, like they're not hitting their shots anyway, right? So like ultimately it doesn't change the fact. Yeah, they'd just be shooting the tanks either way. So it wouldn't dumpster the hero in low level play. She'd still have a very, very fair reward curve, but she wouldn't be so oppressive that you're literally playing against Widowmaker at every single choke that you turn on top of the super hypermobile soldier, with
Yeah.
Disruptor.
And that's a really, I think those are really good ideas as well. And I really want to kind of focus on what Frito's brought up now, which is about this like fundamental gap and whether that makes it kind of
Mhm.
impossible almost to solve this problem. Because I know Flats, you recently made a tank guide. Congratulations on hitting 1 million.
Thank
Well
you.
done,
You
my
also
man.
hit 1 million.
Wow, we're a million club out here.
Yeah, true. Who would have
Just
thought?
patting each other on the back, just like mutual appreciation society.
Got you.
But you know this as well. You know this is someone who's kind of reviewed so many players as well. Is this whole mentality of like fight the tanks all day, every day, and then find out that Orisa suddenly OP when you pump 8 sets of cooldowns into her, and she goes, "Well, I spin and I fortify, and you're fucked now." So like, do you think that that's like that makes some sort of fundamental issues, like some way to get around it, or is it just like how a game is going to be when we have like a a skill curve?
This is the perfect argument for why you always balance from the top down. Because if you balance from the middle, it's hard. You don't have consistent data. You have some people that really care and they follow the meta picks. They follow what's strong. They try to play what's best for their teams. And then you have players who just play what they want to play because they are casual gamers. There's a middle ground. The middle ground is, and I've actually had this conversation with some devs, and I open my eyes to certain things. Like, for example, if like, let's say Reinhardt, right? Let's say Reinhardt never dies in lower relo. Like, their experience becomes significantly worse because all they do is shoot at each other the entire time. And that's how you got in old Overwatch. You'd have those people come in chat and be like, I just did a game on Soldier where I had 45,000 damage and I lost. And it's like, how the fuck did you do 45,000? Like, dude, like you're in bronze? Like, you can't even hit the broadside of a barn and you did 45,000 damage? Why? Because both the tanks just stood there AFK. Well, they had Bat Moira at their peaks just pumping heals the entire time. And it's like, you're also playing a not burst character. You're playing a damage over time character versus healing over time that's overpowering you. Plus, they have ways to mitigate it. And it's like, how do you beat that? Well, it has to be two things. One, players have to learn over time. How do players learn over time? Well, there's a few things for it. They have to figure out what works, what doesn't work. There's word of mouth, content, stuff, Overwatch League. There's a lot of different ways. But I've always noticed that it seems like the meta of lower ranks, depending on how low you go, it's always by about like 2 months. It's like whatever is really strong in high level play, it takes about 2 months for it to get to like diamond or plat. Like, of course, you have a few people that are like, oh, I'm trying to force the high level comp, but it's like the average players didn't start playing, like, you didn't start seeing double shield and silver until like a year in. And then you started seeing double shield and silver. Not like they knew how to play it, but they picked the comp. They were like, oh, this comp wins. I wonder why, but I will try to make it work. But it's like,
Then they play it awfully, and then
yeah,
it's just
no,
like
they,
get
yeah,
rolled
they
by
just stand there. They're
Reinhardt.
like, oh, well, I lost to the Reinhardt. How did I lose to Reinhardt? Reinhardt bad. Flats told me Reinhardt's bad. Well, yeah, the Reinhardt's good because he can't miss a swing. You can't hit a fucking shot. So like, it doesn't really work there. But point being, I guess, is people come in and they're like, well, I can't beat Orisa. Like, Orisa sucks. And it's like, why do you think Orisa's not played in high level play? It's like, I don't know. I don't get it. Well, let me show you. Orisa has 3 abilities. She has Fortify, where she stands there and she's tankier and has 100 extra shield. Zarya can still beam her during that. She has Spinny Spear when she eats projectiles and whatnot. Guess one's not a projectile? Zarya beam. So you just beam her through the spear or through the Spinny Spear. And then she has her Javelin, which you can bubble. So here's how it goes. I get 80 energy, you don't hurt me, and I kill you. And that's it. And it's like, it's that easy. But it's like, they want to play Reinhardt versus Orisa. You know why Reinhardt doesn't feel that good against Orisa? Because Orisa can spear you back, fortify, sit there, spinny spear away. Like, she uses all your cooldowns on the other tank, and the other tank feels like, oh, I just can't kill her. Like, what the heck? Like, you're not picking the correct things to beat her. And if you do pick the correct things to beat her, you're just smacking your heads against each other because you think that's how you're supposed to play tank. That's not how you play tank. If they use their cooldowns, back the fuck away, because Orisa's all about her cooldown usage. When she has none left, she dies. That's how she's supposed to work. So you're telling me that you have to balance for players that, 1, don't want to learn about like what is actually good at the moment. 2, they don't want to learn counters. 3, they don't want to pick those counters. And 4, they don't actually learn what doesn't work. So that's why you don't balance around the middle. You balance from the top down, because as long as it's not game-breakingly long times to kill and things actually still die over time, you can't, if you balance from their perspective, they're not using the proper strategies anyways, and at the high level they'll become broken. So point being, how do you teach them? There needs to be a better system. Like, Overwatch does a really bad job of teaching you how you're supposed to play the game. Like, my most disliked video ever is me playing the tutorial. I'm not joking. It's like by far my most disliked video ever because I just memed it. I'm like, oh, I'm learning how to play. I shot 4 bots and I put down a healing station. I went out the back and there's a control thing and it tells you walk onto the point and you stand there and it captures and you win. And that's it. It's like, what the fuck is that? Like, you know, so I don't know. The systems there aren't enough to teach the players. So to be honest with you, that's a whole different question. But to balance the game, to answer your original one, has to be top down, but not break the middle ranks. Don't break their experience. They still deserve to have fun, but you can't be balancing from the middle. You have to balance from the top down, period.
Frito, how do you feel about?
Yeah, again, Flats is me 6 years ago. It's like, I think coming from a lot of hardcore games, I had that diehard perspective, and spending years trying to teach players on that skill curve, I gained a lot of perspective interacting with them and the realities of their experience. And one of them is like, they're never going, there's a big percentage of players that are never ever going to get more than 1 or 2 ranks of where they are. Like that is just going to be their experience forever based on their skill, and no amount of learning certain things is going to be enough. Believe it or not. Like, a lot of people don't like to say this. They're like, oh, if you just try hard enough. No. Some people just like can't react fast enough or can't move the mouse right. And yeah, they can improve, and you can always improve from where you are. But there's sort of this like super copium idea that like everyone can compete, and it's just yeah, that's not how competition works. Unfortunately, sometimes you're going to be less good than whatever percentile of players that are better than you. So with that being the case, it's like it's tricky because the reality is something is always broken at the highest tiers of play. So if that is a given and will always be the case, then balancing for the highest tiers of play is a nonsensical idea, because there's always just going to be something else that continuously and ideally what we want, of course, we'd all agree on this, is like you want to see multiple comps get played across different maps. Like, that's like, if we have that, then that's like golden era Overwatch, and let's like try to leave it as much like that as possible. So that being a goal, I would agree with, which I might say we don't have now. So some tuning probably could be required, but I'll just throw like a wrench in this argument. It's like, how do the devs make a character that's all about her skill shot fun for this, let's say 70% of the player base who will never be as good as a GM at Sojourn? This is like a impossible problem to solve, where we already know they're not even good at the cooldown based characters that are easy to play. Now they need like super aim. It's like the game's just hard, right? And the problem with having only top-down balancing with Overwatch is like you then get these incredibly degenerate strategies that, okay, let me just back up a few points. Okay, I'm happy with top-down balancing as long as it isn't trying to make all the heroes viable, like Symmetra and Junkrat and Sombra and there's other things. And Reaper was one of the best examples for this. As long as we're not trying to force easy characters into the high tier meta, totally fine. The problem is when you make those strong, they're still not competitive at the higher tiers anyway. And then they dumpster the average player, who again is like trying to play Sojourn, right? And can't hit as many headshots as the top 1%. Now, if you buff easier characters, why would they just not pick them? And this is a reality for a lot of characters where their win rates are in the dumpster because the skill floor of them is so high that you really should just play something easier. And if you pick something easier, you would just win more, and then that hero gets a higher win rate. It's kind of like your Reinhardt example. It's like there's a lot of skillful tanks right now that either take too much game sense or too much mechanics now. Tanks take a lot of mechanics, and the truth is, like, it's like the value of having cover when your enemy has no cover is just a massive chasm of value that every plat and below player just gobbles up because they don't use cover. If they did, they wouldn't be in plat. So if you pick a tank that generates cover for them, the team gap is immeasurable. And this is the Diva versus Rhine thing that I'm saying. And I don't know how to solve it is kind of my point. Like we have to pick which problems we're going to have. And I'd agree we should bias towards top down, but I'm just trying to warn against I sort of feel that Kiriko is a very bad character for ranked. Like, I don't think you should pick her. Generally speaking, your team is not going to know how to maximize that character. You're going to have a much easier time on other picks. And that's a tricky thing for new skill-based characters. Sojourn, Junker Queen, and Kiriko, all three, require some very specific either knowledge or skill sets. And should we allow the devs to let the seasons have an identity around that character, or do we demand they be balanced? But then I just said it can't be balanced for everyone, because at tiers where you understand how to counter Junker Queen, she's a non-entity. And then I just told you that my Junker Queen stats are ridiculous when I'm not getting countered. So what game do we want or expect to have is kind of my point. It's there's going to be this boom and bust cycle with the whole game. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of the arguments about Sojourn just remind me about the arguments about every hit scan that's ever existed. And
Yeah.
I don't disagree that she's the S tier pick when played optimally. It's just that hardly anyone can do that. So what do the devs do?
So
like you want to interject.
yeah, so top down, this is something that I feel like Frito argued all this 6 years ago. I argued all this 3 years ago, and now Flats, it's your turn, baby, your turn, buddy. So now the big problem that I have with this argument, I think it's a silly argument, because what does balancing for medal ranks actually entail, right? Here's my thing. Again, I talk about the margin for error all the time. Game balance, when the margin for error is all over the place, is just not nearly as effective as when the margin for error is so small, because that's where you get the max value of the hero, right? I don't particularly have a huge issue with Sojourn being hard meta or anything like that, or each season having an identity. I'm totally okay with that. The one thing that I am not okay with is the fact that you cannot break your skill to reward system. As long as you don't make it so that easy heroes are better than the high risk, high reward, high skill heroes, generally, past that point, everything to me becomes subjective. Okay, how am I feeling? As long as you don't break the golden rule, which we did with Brig at some points, we did with Double Shield at some points, where you're sitting behind two shields spamming instead of Reinhardt having to choose whether or not he's swinging his hammer, saving shield, positioning, but Sig can just sit there and poke, and Orisa can sit there, fortify, poke, and now that's not in the game anymore, and that's great. As long as you don't break that golden rule, I'm kind of fair game, to be honest. I would just like to see some things be tuned, because at least in Sojourn's case, my only gripe is that she's literally 3 heroes in one, where it's okay, let's take a little bit away of the Widowmaker aspect, where she just keeps that railgun for so long, but keep what's super fun, super high skill about her, because the players in low ranks here as well are not saving that railgun charge down the choke. That's not what they're doing, right? They're not, they're shifting into the team and insta-dying, right? So that way you maintain it. And to give the devs credit, this is a really tough thing to get right. It is not easy to do, but at the same time, when I hear people say, oh, well, let's balance for the medal ranks, well, guys, what does that mean? Can you tell me anything of substance what that actually means?
Junkrat.
Yeah, it's guys, this doesn't mean anything, right? You can't go in substance, because the margin for error is just so high that you can get away with anything, and there's no effective way to balance. So ultimately, the best thing that you can do as a game studio is just leave it in the hand of your players. Maintain that same box fair skill to reward curve, and what happens, because there's no way for you to go into these medal ranks and make it work. It's not possible. It's just, actually, a couple of times, the only time where you really saw that happen is when they tried to get rid of goats, right? Because they put Brig in the game, Goats meta came, and then we buffed Reaper to 40-50% lifesteal. Did nothing at high-level play, but dumpstered low-level play. Reaper was unkillable, and people were pissed. And I'm well, this is what happens. And people try to say, well, this is what happens when you try to balance the top. No, this is what happens when you try to balance for the middle because nobody could answer dive. And everyone was complaining about Tracer Genji. Instead of nerfing Tracer Genji Diva, we put Brig in, force goats, buff Reaper as the answer, which clearly everyone knew wasn't going to be the answer, but then metal ranks get destroyed. So again, it's a very slippery slope. I don't really like having the conversation too much anymore because I'm like, every time I have it, I'm like, okay, well, what does this actually mean in substance? And we can never answer it because at the end of the day, people don't know how to play the game. It doesn't matter what hero they're playing or how the devs balance it. Like cause and effect. The cause here of like, you know, of balancing the game has zero effect on what ends up, not zero, very, very small effect on what actually happens in these games. So it's not possible. It's just fluff. And I love what is that? What is that marshmallow stuff that you get that you can? It's fluff.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
I love fluff. Sorry. I had to make one analogy, and I love fluff. All right. I love fluff.
Sam, you gave my favorite example. The Reaper example is my favorite one. Like I don't think I would ever say you want to balance for the middle ranks. You just don't want to dumpster their
yes.
experience.
That you know what? That's a great way to put it. Thank you.
Like in you know, Flat's memed about Junkrat, right? Like, this is what I don't want to see. I don't want an argument being made by anyone that because Junk's not in top 500 leaderboard, that he should be buffed. I'm telling you,
wrong.
it's like he is
KMJ
hilariously
top 10.
easy of a character. What'd you say?
KMJ, he's a Junkrat man. He's top 10.
He's top 10? Oh,
he's on one. Yeah. Pipe player 62.
My point is, I'm happy with top-down balancing as long as we're not discussing getting like lower-ranked heroes to force them to be meta. Because like everyone can kind of have its play. Every character can kind of have their place. And like I think, as someone with a 75% win rate as Junkrat, like clowning on the things people are saying are meta, and I'm keep getting better at them too. I think like investing in I think you like this game's more one-trickable than Overwatch 1 in many ways because you can learn your different matchups and place in the meta as well, which is kind of fun, especially if you have something that like interacts with the meta fairly well. Like for example, Junk's not bad against Genji at all, who's otherwise deemed a top level pick. But like my fear is that when something is tuned just to apply to the higher tiers and then makes lower tier gameplay unfun. Like that's the goal. Again, I'm not saying things should perform evenly on the skill curve. It should just not be unfun gameplay. Well, it can be because they buffed Sim, for example, and she gets played on like one map, right?
Yeah.
But, like I just feel like we haven't seen enough of this gameplay. You got to like see some silver gameplay of Overwatch 1 when they buff Sim and they're playing Sim Torb on Junkertown, and no one can get past it. It is an impenetrable fortress of a defense. Like you have no idea. Like it's just not cool because you just let these characters exist and be stronger, and they should have their place. Like it should require a lot of work in the map and all that. As long as we're doing that, then I'm really happy. So anyway, for the record, I don't think Genji necessarily needs to be nerfed. I think he'll still be decent, and I think they should probably tune Sojourn somehow. I've just wanted to devil's advocate this the belief that we have that will solve this problem. I'm just trying to like lower that expectation to like there'll be another problem next season. It's like
of course
we're gonna be it's gonna be Widow. I'm sure
dude, there's not a tank kill. We're fucked. Game's gonna break. Like it's consistent every time a tank characters come out. Just boom, that shit fucking blows it up.
And I think I think it's really great to bring that context, basically, Fredo, because I think that these kind of things are always important to remember because we obviously get in our bubble and was not what the majority of players experience. And I kind of, while you're listening to all you guys, I kind of like a semi-epiphany where I was trying to think like, how does this compare to other games? Like, how do they handle this thing? And I think what's unique about Overwatch is that because the heroes are so core, like the hero is unique and the hero is core to the gameplay, right? Again, in a different game, in a gun-based game, it's like you can have your favorite gun, but the gun is like consistent as you climb the ranks or whatever. It's kind of like Overwatch is probably one of the few games that sells you a dream, right? It sells you a dream that like you can, if you get better, you're gonna climb, right? You just perfect your hero and you can climb. And we say this all, and I truly do believe it, and it's true for the 90% of heroes. But there are like 10% fringe heroes for whom that dream is not a possibility. Like that is not gonna happen because if you improve at this hero from gold to plat, yeah, you'll climb. From plat to diamond, yeah, you'll climb. But then there's gonna be somewhere that there's a wall where just the nature of the skill set of the heroes is going to hit the wall. And usually we would categorize this as cheese, right? If we talk about bingo card, StarCraft, right? Like it's like you could run your way through the lower ranks, through gold, to through platinum by cheesing, by doing something that's really lame, that has a very obvious counter. And once people are good enough to know the counter, you're just never going to win, or you're going to find it really hard to win. So in normal games, we'd call that cheese, or maybe picking like the shotgun weapon in a Valorant or something. Where it's like, oh, it's kind of lame and cheesy, just lurking around a corner waiting for someone. But when they can one tap you, you just lose. And it's ironic that in a way we're talking about basically certain Overwatch heroes are like the cheese heroes, right? It's like, can we ever realize a world where Symmetra can be like viable at top 100? Probably not, because is there some element of just cheesing with the hero? Like you're just cheesing to win with the hero, because the minute someone can hit a Sojourn railgun, your character it just does not work out. The only reason it wins is because people don't know how to answer this thing, or they're not capable of answering this thing. So I just wonder if there's like certain heroes, and I feel my boy Reinhardt has kind of fallen semi into this category, because like again, you ask a plat player, they're like, "Oh my god, Reinhardt's OP." SVB, like, what the fuck is this shit? I'm so tired of constant 90% Reinhardt's in my game, and I'm like, yeah, but when you realize that Zarya lives forever and just does like 10 times more damage, then it doesn't matter. And so yeah, I just wonder if like certain heroes are destined to always lean towards the cheese element, where it's like,
Yeah,
I don't know if
100%.
we can ever realize this.
No, 100%, and that's fine, right? Again, like my thing again is just you cannot break the golden rule. You cannot have low skill heroes that require less, output more than the high skill ones. And as long as you don't do that, you have a lot of leeway to work with. But if you break that, you lose your core game, you lose fair play, you lose the desire, that you lose the dream at that point. And like again, the best point I've ever heard is like, you can't have Widowmaker be equally viable in Silver and Grandmaster. Not possible. And that's totally okay. That's what makes the game fun, and you just got to take those.
Are we feeling that Overwatch 2 has broken that rule yet?
Nope.
I don't think they have.
Nope,
right?
has
So-
not.
No, it hasn't.
Nope. They've done a great job so far. Hopefully they keep it up.
I'm glad we feel that way. Which, although this started from the discussion about intuitivity, there's one more thing I wanted to bring up, because I think it fits really nicely, is the new game mode push, because I feel like that is a perfect example of unintuitive design of the mode.
Mm-hmm.
Because 9 out of 10 times when you're winning, you should stop pushing at some point instead of just running it down on the cart over and over. Even when you lose 2 or 3 players and you're still like, keep pushing, No, I know the mode is called push. I know the bot is compelling you to push him. But there's a lot, in fact, maybe like a large majority of the times where if you've got the lead, stop pushing, right? So Flats, I know your boy J3 has been arguing that push is worse than 2CV. How do you feel about push? And do you feel like it's like counterintuitive right now? Does like something have to be done to it?
I think
Why do you think?
people just haven't learned how to play it yet. That's it. Like, I think it'd be fine when people learn how to play a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe that's just a hot take, but
Do you think they will? Because people never realized 2CP, right? People still fucked up 2CP years, and that's why they're just dumpster it.
Yeah. I think I'll say like Coliseum was just a fucking terrible map. Like, I don't know what y'all were making on that one. New Queen Street is not as bad, but my shining light is Esperanza. Is a great map. I think that map's a lot of fun. I think that shows why push can work. But the other two were just go back to the drawing board a little bit. This Coliseum needs to go back to the drawing board. That map feels like you're fighting in the tunnel of the train on Midtown, like it or whatever the fuck it is now. Like it's just like what are we doing in here? Like we're literally on a box, just everyone's shooting each other in this box, and it's ass. And it's like I feel like there could be some really good strategies, you know, like for example, and I've seen this even in GM. Like it's like people that aren't like. Okay, maybe they aren't actually GM. It could be the matchmaker thing. I don't know what to talk about that. But like, we'll win a fight, but we lost like 1 or 2 out of it. And it's like, okay, let's just wait. We're already ahead. Let's just wait till our teammates get back. And then we're going to have really good positioning. Instead of pushing the bot as far as we can that way, realizing that, oh shit, we just pushed it fucking 2v5. And then you had to burn all your cooldowns as you're running away to barely survive. And then they fucking have been chasing the whole way down. And now you don't have your cooldowns because you use them to escape and you get run over. And it's like, guys, like I feel like when we learn how to play push and learn how to hold space and realize, hey, we don't actually all have to be pushing the bot. There's no more gold objective time. It doesn't exist anymore. Like we don't have to fight for that last gold medal anymore. So why don't we just play good positioning? And I think that'll come with time. I think after you see a lot more like high level pro play, I think when like, you know, after like a few more months, maybe even a year, realizing like there's certain points that you hold. Like for a good example, Siegel pointed out to me on Hollywood, and when Overwatch first came out, people would hold the first high ground on Hollywood out the door to the top right. Like, that's the high ground they would hold at first. Then they realized it was too close to the spawn room and you'd get poked out and it was hard to rotate back. So then they started holding back a little bit closer to point. And there's a lot of maps that are like that. Over time, people have changed where you hold. And I think even Parisu is starting to see that a little bit. Like, everyone holds that first choke really hard. But as it started to go on, like if you're playing like hit scan characters, they actually play towards the second bridge or the high ground above the point now. They don't play the first point. I think Push will also adapt that way, where you'll understand, even on Colosseo, those small rooms at the end of the long hallway, the minis, maybe playing around there is a little bit better to wait for your team instead of pushing the bot all the way to their side and like being at a disadvantage. I think it's going to have to be learned over time. I think 2CP we played it with for 6 years. We all learned how to play it. Not everyone played it properly, but everyone kind of like learned over time, or a lot of players learned over time, and it still sucked. So we've had 6 years of this one game mode that sucked ass. We're comparing it to this new game mode that we've only had for realistically a couple months of beta. Let's say 3 months total, month this month, and then 2 months of beta time. Like, it's not really fair yet. It's too early. And I think Esperanza is a great example of it. The game mode can work. It can be fun. So I think it'll be good with time.
Frito?
I love the subject. Thanks. I think Push is undoubtedly a more fun casual mode and more playable, because in 2CP, it was so much about regrouping and ult execution as a team at every rank. That's sort of the issue. It's like that was the case in Plat, where they stagger in the whole game. Like, that was if your team staggers in 2CP in Overwatch 1, how do you win? It's like the gap that you would have to somehow find and the playstyle you'd have to adopt in order to get your team to accidentally regroup, basically, and then combo with them and like half soft reset. It just was terrible. Like, the amount of games I've seen just auto lose on Anubis B, like never getting to point. It's rough. And that's, as someone who really likes seeing it, watching it in the past at the highest level, there's a lot of cool strategies and things you could do. But I'm glad that era of Overwatch is over, because people just didn't get it on the whole. But Push as a competitive mode is like the opposite. It's like 2CP had all this great higher level complexity and depth, whereas Push, then as soon as you get to a higher level, gets really dumb, honestly. Because the foundation of the mode is like the angle advantage on these maps is outrageous. Like we're describing it, and you want to soft reset. And the reason is because the positional advantage based on the spawns of where they go is ridiculous. And then on top of that, the comeback mechanic of the bot pushing back quicker, I think, also plays into this a bit, where the places the fights will begin to take, and the nature of just having any lead wins you the game. Like, there's just so many reasons why we have the perfect cacophony of the most cagey game style we've ever had. And I think this was not necessarily intended by the devs. I think think when they drew this up, they were envisioning a very flank happy, like chaotic game mode, maybe closer to Control. But somehow it, like, because here's a cool thing about Control, right? And it's been deemed a weaker competitive game mode in many ways, and I might even go so far to agree on that point. But a cool thing is like there's a benefit to die on point, because you're controlling the thing, and there's a chance you can clutch. And there's a lot of maps, like Sanctum's a good map for this, for example. It's like the objective is near, there's a power position on the left, there's a hole next to the point, and at any point you almost feel, in Overwatch 2 especially, it's like someone could pop off and then we could reclaim the map and win the objective. In Overwatch 2 Push, it's like there's, once you get the bot on their side, the percentage likelihood that you'll ever make a play like that is so low. It's like, just leave. Just leave and soft reset and make them fight into you, because why attack when you can defend? And you can just defend the ground you have. They have to push the bot into you. And I don't know how the game fixes this, honestly. Avril has put a lot of thought into this on his podcast, and being a caster and watching this early, it's like he pointed this out really quick. It's like the team with the lead, it boringly camps the lead all the time, and the percentage chance to win with the lead is super high. Now, luckily, of course, there's
70% on first cap, I think. Crazy number.
Right, and that plays into everything I just said. The reasons why is everything I just said. Is like there's not really extra benefit to gain, and I don't know how they fix it without making the mode more complex in some way. Like I think I don't have the answer myself, but an example is like you used to not be able to earn ticks in 2CP. Okay, imagine that. Imagine playing against the respawn advantage on Volskaya B. Okay, and you're fighting it off, and
And you
Go
would
ahead.
win if you had 0% on defense first, and they then also got 0%. You would win just because you went first. You would just get the win.
Was that
Yeah,
like
I
the
mean,
that was that day one? No, that was
Well, there's coin
wait.
flip on tie. Yeah, there's a coin flip on
Oh,
tie.
Coin flip. Holy shit.
Thank
So you
God.
would
Yeah,
win.
we're push is much better because it's more fun and easily playable as like you get to fight the enemy as opposed to thinking like, oh, we shouldn't have been fighting this whole time. Now that kind of happens in push, but you'll eventually reset and anyway. I like it's not as punishing as that, but we're at that era of that mode where it's going to need further minute changes to like somehow slow down all these mechanics we're saying are kind of breaking the higher end competitive complexity of the mode.
What about like it's the only game mode where you have more people on point. It doesn't push it faster.
Also, it doesn't heal you, which I think I don't get why that's a benefit to the mode at all.
An
What
idea
if there
I
were,
had
what
was
if there
like,
were two bots with checkpoints?
that's a good idea.
Like
I'd have to
you
think
have
about
ticks.
it,
Like
but
the part of the problem is that like it's so hard to like get the bot to go all the way back and around. Like it's so hard to. Well, I don't know. I have to think about it.
Those
But
overtime fights
one
too.
idea.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, you go ahead, Flats. You're right. The overtime fights are crazy.
So I actually have a strat. I kind of developed this strat when I was playing with Emong and Seagull because we were 3-stacking. And on Esperance, we already had the lead. They were overtime. They won the fight. So they're going from our side of the map to their side. We get good spawn. So, you know, like it divulges. Like if you go one of the forward spawns, you could go inside and then it divulges up on the high grounds. If you actually go behind them, instead of like going ahead of them and like cutting them off, you go behind them, you'll always get at least 2 people that turn around to fight you. And the other ones are like, oh, we can't leave the bot. If we leave the bot's running away. Like, we're going to C9.
Yeah.
And one of 2 things happens. They leave the bot to fight you, or they leave their teammates to get slaughtered, and then you go back and kill the rest of them. Every time, without fail. And it's like, it's so counterintuitive because, like, you have to then convince everybody, which means that, like, if anyone was a little bit lagging behind, especially support players are always lagging a little bit behind to, like, you know, play for cover. They're looking for, like, okay, when's this next fight going to start? Where can I sit that's more safe? If they're sitting a little further back and you come speeding out of Narnia with your whole team and they're like, oh, shit. Like, your whole team has to turn around and come save you. And if they don't, you're dead. And it's like, there's that trust of like, oh my God, I now must run to my team who's also running with this bot. And it's like this weird dynamic then forms that because the bot, dude, he sprints in overtime. He goes fast.
He goes.
Like, it's tough actually to keep up with him. Like, I've actually had, he's actually like outrun people in C9 them, like pretty much just because like they turned around for a second and he took like 2 more steps and that was it. And it's like, what? You know, so it's like, there's a lot of wonky things there that don't feel totally right. So I agree.
There's another example which is kind of weird. Like so everything Flat just said, it's like those plays is what makes me feel like it's fun because it's like you can express yourself in the mode in all these different ways, but then it's also counterintuitive and kind of lame. Like here's another one. In the whole camping the lead thing, you actually, when the time's running out, you're at a benefit to like hold the bot always where it's harder for them to touch it. So in theory, you're supposed to push it to their side, right? But if there's like a minute left, just leave that thing like Esperanza is the map we like, and I agree. But just have the high ground, leave it before the checkpoint, and make them come back at it. Or in fact, better get, if the bot's on your side, depending on where the spawns hit, they got to clear the whole map, and you could just be everything Flats just said. Hide around a corner. Like, why do you don't have to play the objective at all? You can do all sorts of crazy things of taking a fight off the objective away from them because they have to go touch it, right? It's like, it's just so hard to interact with this objective in like a consistent way. And maybe that comes to, you know, Flats' point of just not understanding the mode. It's like clearing the map is just so important in this mode. And the maps are complicated and there's a flank here and a flank there. And it's fun to play because of that. But it also means like, I just wonder like how long it's going to take for people to realize that it's a map control mode first, like way more important in almost every team fight, and then in so many cases the objective, like I just feel like there shouldn't be a scenario where I just described where you don't want to push the objective because then it makes your fight easier, and that's the whole mode in a nutshell. But especially in overtime, there's ways where like you win the fight, they respawn, and you should not touch it, so it's harder for them to come touch it to contest, and that's just goofy. And winning a game because of that just feels lame when you do it to me.
Well, I mean, that's the definition of counterintuitive, right? It's like doing the thing the mode asks you to is actually making it harder for you to win, which is just like, well, that's just dumb. This is a
Yeah.
dumb idea. I was gonna say one idea I had. I don't know if this is a really dumb idea, but I was like, when you retake control of the bot, maybe there's like a sim TP type thing should appear, and you and the bot should just fucking YOLO to where it was when you were pushing it, and you should be able to like YOLO over to it as well. Because I think the biggest frustration is having to cross the entire fucking map to get back
Yeah.
to where then you have to start pushing slowly. I feel like if we could just YOLO back and forth to where we were, maybe that would be a better solution. Because I feel like what the devs have wanted, I think this is what they've ideally wanted with like a lot of changes they made in this new mode, is this idea where like maybe people won't 6-man or 5-man in Overwatch, and we want to encourage a mode where, because I remember when they were like selling push, they were like fights can take place anywhere on the map, and like you can take duels anywhere, and it's like, yeah, but that never happens, dude. Like, there's always one stronger part of the map. There's always one point of the map where there's a high ground. That's where everyone wants to fight. That's where everyone will fight. And no one's ever gonna not 5-man, because if you're 5-manning and they're not 5-manning, you just win. So I wonder if it's like that's like another core issue of like, will we ever be able to force Overwatch players to not 5-man at optimal level?
I think
I
a really
don't
good
know.
analogy on this mode discussion is like I'm sure most people have played either COD or Battlefield in their life at some time, and like the default map control winning strategy for a domination or even conquest is like, for whatever reason, there's always point B is in a death zone. And once you have it, then you like camp these big sight lines. And I just feel like Push has multiple objective styles like that are like, all right, once the objective's here, there's a death zone. So it's like you just want to camp the death zones and hold it. And that just makes I don't know, like you would have to somehow incentivize fighting into that with objective progress in some way, to make players push into a disadvantaged situation. Whereas in reality, what happens in COD, like at the pro level, for example, is like we're just going to hold angles. But the average player is like, oh, jump on point, and they're dolphin diving onto B to get blown up all game. And that's, I don't know, maybe that's just something we're gonna have to live with this mode, to be honest, and get over it. They got a new mode coming. That's the cool thing with this game. They're gonna keep making modes, so that we don't have to live with this mode for 6 years like we did with 2CP. So that's where I'm a bit optimistic. Where I'm like, all right, it's got limitations. It's gonna be a little wonky. It's fun at least. So I'm optimistic that maybe like it comes. Are we ever going to see a mode come out of competitive rotation? I think we kind of have a lot. If they're making a new one in whatever time period they said is going to come out, like what happens with that if it's intended to be a core mode? I don't know.
I'd probably rather that than map rotation. That's something to mention as well. Well, one thing I
I was
quickly
just
wanted to
gonna bring that up
mention.
too.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly mention this before we go to that, because that's another interesting topic point. I was listening to like someone talk about a study done into esports and what makes compelling esports, and basically the number one foundational thing that they found is that the game should be able to end at any moment. Like something that should happen in the game that's what makes it interesting to watch, is if at any moment something could happen that could potentially end the game. And I think that's why 2CP was interesting, at least at a pro level, because that was true. Like at any moment someone could do something that would end the game right there or end the round. But the problem with push is that it's like the complete opposite is true. It's like nothing matters
Yeah.
half the time. Like half the time none of this matters. So I
You
wonder if that's
know,
another like thing at all. Let's go ahead, Sam.
do we think we needed to get rid of 2CP?
Oh, here we go.
Yes.
I was
2CP is a DPS
Are you
favorite.
saying it would? Are you saying it would work in 5v5 better? Because I've heard a lot of people say
Interesting.
this.
Well, I'm wondering, like, again, I don't really feel strongly about this either way. I will say, one of the pros of 2CP is that it allowed playstyles, like a bunker-esque playstyle in the game, that unfortunately became oppressive due to hero design over like the core, like to the point where like it was just like you're walking out on Li Jiang control center and both teams are on double shield. And it's like, okay, like we failed this, right? But I'm wondering now if in 5v5 that could be any different. I don't know. I will say though, in the topic of map pools, I wish maybe it was a little bit bigger, like maybe 1 or 2 more maps per because I missed.
Start on the map pools.
Oh, here we go.
Let's
Get
get
some
on
bingo
that.
out, baby. Oh God, I will say I don't know. I just opened 2 cans of worms at once.
Yeah, those are 2 cans
they
of worms.
dropped the
Flats,
max on the fire.
I feel like
Yes.
Flats wanted to respond to both. Flats,
Which one do you want me to go after first?
Why don't you
Which
go
one
to
are you
the
hungry
2CP
for?
thing
Go for
first,
it.
and then we'll go to map pools because that's a larger discussion. So go ahead. Like, do you think 2CP would have worked in Overwatch 2?
No. 2CP is a 90% game mode based around your tanks. Your tanks were the ones that forced their way to point, were the ones that had to play either certain comps to get through certain chokes. They had to path well, they had to survive. Like, if you had shitty tanks, you never won 2CP. Like, ever. The only time you won 2CP if you had shitty tanks is if you were playing defense first and the other team got demoralized. That's it. Like, if you could spam people out really, really hard, I feel like if you had shitty tanks, you just got you're done. You're toast. So not only that, it's the game mode where also playing tank is one of the most unfun because you're basically just throwing yourself into the enemy team to make some space and try your best to make an opportunity happen. Now, if you don't have the correct comps and you don't have the correct things, you won't get through those chokes fast enough. You won't survive long enough. And true, with a Gigabuff tank, maybe you could survive longer. But regardless, though, I've already seen more than my fair share of C9s. I don't know if you guys have seen this too, but I feel like the rate of C9ing has gone up like 100-fold. I've never seen so many people step off the point recently because in old Overwatch, you had one tank hold forward, and then typically either one tank you would either have both tanks hold forward or you'd have one tank hold forward and one tank hold point, and like something along those lines. Now the tank has to do both jobs together, either hold space or to contest point. And a lot of times, especially in high level play, the answer is to hold forward. So who touches point? That's a tough one to say. And I think also in TCP, that'd be even harder question to ask because yes, you're supposed to fight all the way to point, but like, what happens when you get there and it's like they just dropped back long enough that all 5 of them still alive? And let's say Temple of Anubis, right? In Temple of Anubis, you can have all 5 players fall back on defense to one of the corners and just literally one tap whatever tank you have come on point 1v5. It's just like one of those game modes that it was all about taking space and holding the space and just surviving the bunker spam. And I don't think that would work very well in 5v5. And plus, it wasn't fun. Like, there's no way you had fun as a support player when your tank player played fucking Roadhog and would just walk the point on Temple of Anubis and got trapped, spammed, rocked, charged, shattered, slept, naded, and they're screaming like, "Wow, what the hell? Support, save me!" And it's like, dude, you just walked in 1v6. What the fuck do you want me to do, dude? Like, there's no way anyone had any fun with that. And like,
Wait, you're not a magician? You can't magically save me?
yeah, no, I have a mortality field. I mean, I guess that's the point being. It's also a tilting game mode. Like, who likes throwing themselves in a fight for 6.5 minutes? And like, let's say you cap first point, easy, right? You cap first point, first fight, you have 6.5 minutes to attack second, and you get full held for 6.5 minutes. At least in push, when you get rolled, game's over in 3 minutes. It's back to spawn, back to the next game, see you later, writing it off, we go again. 2CP, you are stuck. You are just sitting there, you are fucked. You're like, well, we're just screwed. And I can't tell you how many games I had happen where we fucking rolled them first 2 points, got up on defense, we hold them for 2 minutes, and then everyone on the other team, GG, 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 just get me out of this lobby, GG. They're all fighting with each other. You see like a fucking diva flying around in their spawn room. Like, it was awful. Like, nobody enjoyed that experience. The fact that we have like survivor bias and we're looking back at this is like, oh, this was a great thing. No, it wasn't. Nobody did that on King's Row. Nobody does that on Eichenwald. People don't do that on those game modes, but they always did it on 2CP. Why? Because the game mode was fundamentally fucked.
I want to add, I'm convinced that they've like, to your C9 point, that they've like made it shorter to where
I think so too, actually.
I'm convinced that they've like reduced that distance. Because I've seen things where I'm like, surely that guy was touching, or like I felt like I was touching, but it just didn't count. Also, the change that they did to control, where if you're like 99 and then you flip it back and they were like 13, you just insta win or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
That's
like,
my favorite change.
No,
You
that's
like it?
dog shit. That's an awful change.
No,
I don't like
fuck
it,
no, I
dude.
don't like it.
Oh, I
Absolutely
like it.
not.
I didn't get the
Oh,
cat.
okay,
I was
you
like,
scared me.
Sam,
Yeah, no,
You
no
scared me,
way.
Sam. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I was like, dude. I was
Oh
like,
my
dude,
god,
what the
yeah, no
fuck, Sam?
thanks to
Like
that one.
that's another one that feels really counterintuitive because it feels like you should be able to fight back and you should be able to trigger overtime. But it's like, nah, they just flip. Like that's a perfect C9 moment because like they just if it's Sombra just runs back caps it doesn't even trigger overtime. You just lose. So I feel like I'm not a fan of the sort of new like changes to that regard.
Mhm.
But anything to chime in, Frito, Sam, before we hit to the discussion about map pools on the 2CP issue, or are you satisfied, Sam, with that discussion?
Yeah, I just want to think about it.
A fun thing that I just remembered as well, and with push, like in a losing fight, you can C9 the bot, like and advance it. Let's say you're taking a fight way off the bot, like a flanker or something can C9 it a bit and sort of undo the whole progress of an entire fight. So I think it's interesting the objective priority in the game. Like that's one aspect of Overwatch 2 I kind of like, where it's like it's not super easy to know who should be on cart at any given point, and it's always a big risk. So there's high reward, like I just said, to potentially making a play on the objective. And whereas in Overwatch 1, it was like literally always just bad. Like you only could win the fight. Now it's like 70% that. And there's like a small likelihood chance that you can like C9 it, or maybe the a weak character's holding cart and they're a little cocky about it, and then you go fight them and take the objective. So I'm kind of neutral on the 99 thing on control because I also don't like stalling on control forever or stall in general. But I think I'm in the minority in that point. But I think these extra elements of basically like trying to balance who's on the objective at the right time and making a big objective play like a Lucio boop off the point so they can't touch and trigger overtime or something like those. That's kind of cool to me. Anyway, that's a lot closing thoughts on that point.
I'm just gonna quickly add because we have Gavin Winter here, who's a developer, real one as well as a real great guy. Says there are issues with overtime right now. We're working on it. If you could elaborate on what those issues are, if you're allowed to, Gavin, that would be great. But okay, so there are some known issues with how the overtime is working. Okay, so while we wait for Gavin to eventually respond, flats, map pools,
Listen,
and this will be our last discussion topics. I know Frida's got to go soonish.
if there's something wrong with the maps like Havana, let's say they're not ready yet. Let's say they want to do like a nighttime Havana. If that's how it is, be honest, communicate, be truthful. I don't like this whole, oh, we're not going to have Havana, Rialto, a couple other things, just because we want to have some map pools. Like, excuse me? Like, we've played all these years, these same maps, and now we've taken a few more away, right? Like, so here's the problem. One, I already feel like I'm getting pushed every other game. That's annoying as shit. Number two is we have all these old maps that like we've played on for years. Why all of a sudden we just can't play them anymore when there's nothing wrong with them? Fundamentally, it's just weird. Like, why are we doing that? Because what it does is it keeps variety. I don't like playing Coliseo 4 times a day. It's kind of fucking annoying. And like, it's I would like to be able to play a bunch of games and a bunch of maps all day long and like only play the same one twice, maybe max. And I feel like that's not the case right now. I'll play Busan three times a day or 4 times a day. We have enough maps that you never have to have that happen ever again for. So why does it keep happening? Well, I hate this, guys. And this is why that last blog pissed me off. Is because it felt like we went back to old Blizzard where we're like, we know more than you. And it's like, we're doing this map pool thing. This is what you want. Shut the fuck up. That's not what I want. That's not what nobody wants that. Like, it was like the hero pools. Remember we wanted hero bands and we got hero pools? Hero pools was stupid as fuck. We got shows by like a cat or some shit. Like that's dumb. That's fucking stupid. If you're gonna give us something, go all the way. Make it have the players have a chance to control it. Like if you want to have all the maps in, but you don't think they're all that good, let players ban the maps. Like let's say there's a voting system where we don't want to play push anymore. We're fucking sick of it. And guess what? You have 10 seconds before the game hits to hit X. And you got 8 out of 10 players to veto the map. Boom, it vetoes the map and you go to the next one. And it's like, kind of like old Call of Duty system. The fact that we don't have a map skip system is...
Well, they said it was going to be coming. This is a pet issue of mine. I love this point. Aaron said there'd be some... am I just blanking out on this? I swear on Reddit they said at some point that they were going to add a way to have agency in the map selection at some point? Is this a season 2 thing?
I
Like
think
we haven't
there was
got an answer
something
on
Aaron
this.
said about. I remember that conversation in 21 at some point. I'm not sure exactly when though.
That would
I
be
swear
good.
it was in one of the Reddit AMAs, and yeah, I agree
Yeah.
completely. And my reason for it is because a lot of people say, well, maybe competitive integrity, like if you are a one trick on like Symmetra, or I want to play Junker Queen myself, for example, why should I be able to select the map and just rank up easily on that?
Not
My
even selecting,
argument
just
is
make one skip.
but we get those teammates on the bad maps anyway, and
It's
and that makes
true.
the play experience worse. So it's like it's not like they play the optimal pick on the map. It's not like they like I had a Junker Queen teammate on Gibraltar, and that was we tried. We all picked around the Junker Queen. Okay, we tried to commit, and we made that a competitive game. But it's the dive map. Okay, it's just been a dive map for 6 years, and my point is, why does that player have to just randomly get that, and why do I have to randomly get them on my team with no way of like voting or selection or whatever system you want? Really, just anything but random would be nice.
Is that really even that uncompetitive? Like, I mean, I think I agree. I'm actually in the camp that I think it is uncompetitive, but doesn't games like CS, you can just queue one map over and over, and you could probably get like top rank on just one map, and then like if you play another map, you're still top rank, but it's like you just suck at it. Like,
I come from CS, and it's different on depending. A lot of people play Face It, for example, on that game, but there is a map veto system similar to they have in the actual competitive rule set. So if you were serious about your CS:GO gameplay, you'd probably play ESEA or Face It, and you would take turns map vetoing. The problem with that is a few maps are heavily biased then, right? And then and this is a bit of a tension point with the devs, it seemed, over the years, where they're like, well, we want all the maps to see playtime because but competitively, that's like
I loved Paris.
Great counterpoint, Sam. Yes, well said. Yeah.
Paris,
yes.
Paris is another example where we were like, no, this map sucks because X reason, and it's like we didn't want to change X reason, so we just took it out. Fine, fair. But like nobody wanted Rialto to be gone. Like who was like fuck Rialto? Like, who? Like I even if you don't like it, let's say it's not your favorite map. Were you genuinely like, fuck every other map in the game? Like, Dorado still exists, and you're going to tell me fuck Rialto? Like, are you serious?
Dorado's a fun map. I like Dorado.
Shut your mouth, Sam. Shut your mouth.
I can play J-Seal on Dorado, and I can triple mine tire over all of those buildings, and it works every time.
Dorado is awful. I'm standing on that hill.
There's one thing I want to add. Gavin has responded. He says, we do want to trigger overtime if someone is touching the point just before control ends. What we're seeing in game now is a bug that's the result of fixing another very old bug. So, okay, the control thing is unintentional, guys. Just FYI, it's not a deliberate decision.
I
also different at one point, but you know what? I'm willing to let it slide.
I mean, it's fine.
Yeah,
agreed.
What I was going to say is,
you go, Sam.
Well, I think the devs have earned some leeway too. I think previously, one important note with a lot of this stuff is like, over the last year, obviously everyone's been waiting, but the release has generally been received well, clearly. So I think now, like, especially Blizzard, when it comes last, you talk about the blog post, stuff like that. I feel like Blizzard's kind of operating under the assumption, which is good, of like, hey, this has to be perfect. Like, we got everything to prove still. And I love that energy, but also being realistic now too about like, because we're ground level, we're like foot soldiers here, right? Like we're in the trenches, we're in the game every day, like we're the players, like all that. I think the general consensus based on how this has gone is that I think that they have earned themselves a little bit of wiggle room compared to previous years. So I think that's a good thing for them.
Sure.
And also two things I want to add is this is another way where we're kind of unique to other games. In most games, having a smaller map pool is better for the competitive integrity because the people can practice it more, right? And obviously this is why in OWL we have a map pool so that people. So theoretically, having a smaller map pool, if it actually, we know it doesn't work like this, but if it worked like this, you could learn the exact strats on the maps. Plus, also remember, there's a lot of new players for whom these might genuinely all be new maps. So like, yeah, we're bored as shit because we're like,
I think it's a little small. That's the only problem I have. It's a little small.
It's a little small, yeah. But I'm just saying that these are other reasons for why a map pool, like theoretically, would be the right play. Like normally in a competitive game, you wouldn't have that many maps in a pool.
Very important. It's much bigger than other games. It feels small to us, but
the point is is like, yeah, you're learning more that way. But if you had more maps in, it's harder to nail down strategies on those maps, which means that you're probably gonna have more of a map-based meta. Means that because like, oh, okay, like we're playing Gibraltar, we're gonna probably play Winston or Diva here because those are like, it's the dive map. That's where it's always better. However, though, if Zarya is like really, really strong, let's say Zarya like right now is super strong, someone might try to play Zarya on Gibraltar, but it's much harder to because you haven't had enough time to practice it and develop these strategies. So you end up defaulting back to the old, it's a dive map. Let's play the dive map style. But the Zarya play style is still strong enough that it could still work, you know? So it's like there's enough variety there so that we're not like locking into some small niche meta because it won't work on every map.
The counterpoint would be, well, Zarya's so meta, I just want to get better, so I'll just one-trick Zarya every single map I play. And I haven't played Winston because the Gibraltar map only comes around once so often, so I don't have the time to really hone the Winston gameplay. I may as well just one-trick Zarya and get real
Yeah, the
good.
key word is agency there, isn't it? Like beyond the pool itself, it's just like because you can do what you just said. Like what becomes ranked meta is just like what's good, what's like vaguely good enough on most maps. Where in hours ago, I mentioned a lot of players either don't know how to play Winston, like you just said, or don't know how to play with him and what you're even supposed to target. It's like they end up targeting the Zarya half the game, and it's like, yeah, if you play Winston and target Zarya, you're like, you just lost. So just, you know, pick Zarya and mirror it. And I think that's the default that gets occurs. Whereas if there was some agency, I think like you would see more specialized understanding in the community, like on the whole, because if you know, oh, I'll try Gibraltar today. This is how it would happen in CSGO, right? With the I select the map thing. It's like, you want to try a new map? Well, do you know all your smoke lineups on that map? No? Well, you just got screwed. It's like, you're going to play against players that know all these spots that you don't know. And when Valorant came out, they tried to diminish the learning curve of maps a lot by making the agents very like intuitive with their abilities. But a similar thing happens in Overwatch where, you know, if you're not a dive player, you're not going to want to select a dive map because like you're going to play against dive specialists because they will consistently run that on the map rather than the sort of like flattening and the vagueness of the meta, in my opinion anyway. Like that's how what I've observed in other games where if you are allowed agency on maps, then you will see specialists rise on those maps and actually optimize the maps as opposed to optimizing the easiest strategy that you can play with randoms reliably, which is just what we usually get in Overwatch, I feel.
Anything more to add, Sam or Flats, before we get to concluding thoughts? 'Cause I know Frito has to go soon.
Sam looks like he might be dying. Might want to give him a sec.
I think Sam is. Yeah, Sam, you good?
I'm good. Yeah, it's just yeah, steroids did not do the trick. So
Okay, so I mean, there's so much to discuss always, and I'm sure we could go longer. But obviously, I'm conscious of you guys' time. Obviously, the one thing we haven't mentioned is that the Halloween event is coming soon. So just with an ear to that, concluding thoughts, kind of what are you looking forward to for the rest of the season, and kind of what do you want to see in, let's say, the next, you know, so we've been told that maybe there's going to be some minor changes coming. So what do you want to see for like maybe the rest of the foreseeable season?
I'm going to let you guys go, and I'll just say my thesis for today, turn the corner. That's what I want to see. I'm looking forward to turning the corner. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cool skins. And I hope the balance like just sort of smooths out the gameplay. Like the subtle balance patch, I'm hoping that sort of makes the map-based meta return a little bit more. That would be like my dream for Overwatch when we can get to that. I don't think we're at that at the moment, and that's the goal for the game for me always. So I look forward to that, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for having me on the show. Got to get going.
Thanks,
later.
Frito.
Hey, Frito.
Man.
Good.
Okay, so this is gonna overlays are gonna chop up for a sec, and now Samito is Frito, but carry on.
I always
Frito,
wanted to be Frito.
Frito, aka Sam. What do you think? Just looking forward to that rest of the season.
I'm excited for a new event, hopefully. Not the same Junkenstein for the 7th year. I mean, listen, we grind for rank 1 every year in that mode, but hopefully it's new and hopefully things are good. So, I mean, look, I'm just happy we're back in the race, man. You know, I think that we're seeing so much good stuff from the dev team right now that, you know, you just over the last couple of years you just didn't really see. It's a different energy, it's a different demeanor, it's a different, like, it's like these guys like are, you know, they give off the vibes of the go-getters that we've been really wanting to see. And I think that when you have people like that at the helm, you got to give it a year or two, right? But when you turn the corner, as Frito said, and get the game back into a good spot, and then once you get back to that spot where you'd like it to be, you know, this is where you start to turn the corner and be that top-level industry competitor that we know this game deserves to have because the gameplay is clearly there. Look at how well this is. I have my buddy from kindergarten, my first friend I ever had back in kindergarten, text me like, "Hey man, like, can we hop on Overwatch?" And shout out to Will Sparks if you ever see this. But you know, it's that's kind of where the game's at, and I see people coming together and playing and grinding that just never would have given it the time of day, and it makes me very, very, very happy. And I'm just hoping to see that content continue to come out the same way they're doing it right now and just slowly build up over time as the game gets the respect and credit that it definitely has deserved for its lifespan. So we'll see what happens when it turns this corner. And man, I might have a cane out here next time, man. We're getting old over here, boys. Jeez Louise. Oh, God. All right, but I'm
we're
ready.
mellowing. We're truly becoming old men. We're mellowing. We're
Yeah.
yelling less. Flats.
Well, for now.
I kind of wish we talked about this earlier now, but I'm actually like, I have really high hopes for the Halloween event, but I also have this really, and I hope I'm wrong, I have this bad feeling. I think it's going to be the first time people are actually going to realize what the prices of the shop look like. Because you haven't had to worry about it with the battle pass. Like nothing in the shop's been really that interesting. But if they drop that witch Kiriko skin and she looks great and it's $30 and people are going to be mad, I think that's probably going to be the first taste of people getting the pricing on it. I think that's probably my my big to watch out for. But other than that, though, I'm happy to at least be getting another mid-season event. Like, remember we talked about this like back in like June? Was like, dude, we need to have seasons. We need to have seasons of Overwatch, but then we have micro events. Like, I'm tired of waiting for fucking holidays for shit to happen. And like, now we're here, and it's like we have season one. Season one is all the content, but then we have the micro event of Halloween. It's like, yes, I don't have to wait for Halloween for fucking content now. Like, content's here, and then Halloween's extra, and like, that's so good. And I hope that, you know, the new game mode and stuff, maybe it'll be like, you know, I hope that we get to like see like what like the AI looks like. Maybe it's like the first time like it almost feels PvE like, because I don't know if you've got to test it, but there's actually a new AI mode in the custom games called like aimbot, and basically you can play like against versus AIs and they all have aimbots, and it's hilarious. And I tried it with when we did our playtest stuff forever ago. I did it with 4 or 5 other GMs, and we kind of dumped on them, but like they were getting kills, like they were getting trades every fight, and it was like, whoa, like this kind of legit. So I think it'll be fun. I'm excited for it. I'm happy to see where we are, and I hope we keep growing, and I hope we stay on top.
Yeah, man, it's a whole new world. It's crazy. It's just crazy. It's surreal in many ways to be here after years of kind of talking of all these things that we wanted. Then we get them, and we're like, "Yo, what the fuck? It's real. Narnia exists."
Hey, listen, my favorite thing.
I know, man. And so we'll be back next week to discuss this for the great Kiriko debate. So if some of you may have noted that we didn't really discuss too much of the new hero Kiriko, because we're gonna be here next week with ML7, resident Kiriko main himself. So the usual gang will join me with ML, and we're gonna have a chat about Kiriko. By that point, the Halloween event will be out, so we'll know flats what's going on. We'll know whether we have aimbot Junkenstein monsters to deal with or what's going on. I do also look forward. I think everyone is so excited for some glimpse of what the PvE offers, and yeah, I think it would be really, really awesome to see it. So I'm looking forward to that next event. I hope we're not dominated by discussions of the pricing on the cosmetics, but this is another area where we're just gonna have to get used to it, I guess, as old Overwatch players. This is the new world. It might be some $20 Kiriko skins to
If
fork
that's the
out.
worst problem we have, I'll take it.
True.
That's
True.
like, I'll take it. I'll take that any day of the week, dude. Any day of the week. Any day of the week.
True. True. And on that great note, we're gonna call it here, guys. Thank you to Frito, who's not here anymore, but thank you to as always, Salmon Flats, amazing. My buddies, I can always count on these guys to turn up, talk with me for ages, and we just keep going. We go down these rabbit holes, but it's always a good time with you guys. So thank you for joining me, guys. Yeah, anything to add?
Nah, I'm good.
All right.
No.
Well, Flats
All
and
right.
Sam are both streaming right now, so if they're continuing, please go show them some love. I'll be continuing here in a sec as well, but thank you guys. Peace out from my end.
All right, see you later.
Yeah.